live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday Five. I'm Darren Grimes, along with Emma Trimble, Dr. Renee, Alex Armstrong, and Kai Wilshaw. Well, someone's trying to get rid of me pretty early on. I was about to say that Kai Wilshaw and Alex Armstrong, but my friends, tonight on the show, Emma.
Well, Keir Starmer is gaslighting the Americans over free speech in the UK.
Climate fanatics are after your holidays, your cars and your kebabs.
Labour have made clear, my friends, that they care more about foreign aid than they do freezing pensioners.
Leftists have blown up over Zelenskyy and Trump here in the UK.
And Reform must choose between the United Kingdom and Russia.
Absolutely ludicrous, ridiculous thing to say. It's 6 p.m. and this is the Saturday Five. Now, good evening and a very warm welcome to you, my friends. I'm Darren Grimes, and what a week it has been. Shocking scenes as a short, squabbling egomaniac publicly demanded more cash, more munitions and bigger security guarantees from the leader of the free world. For a moment, my friends, I thought I was watching an episode of the Saturday Five board meetings where a short, squabbling Alex Armstrong demands more airtime, more social media clips and a bigger slice of the budget. And just like Sleepy Joe Biden, I was often the one left nodding along, unsure what I'd just agreed to. Naturally, Alex joins us tonight, fresh from his latest bid to increase his screen time. It's going quite well. The man's addiction to television is so strong that if you cut him open, his blood type is HDMI. I hear he's now demanding a 24-hour live stream of himself, just in case he misses out on a single second of self-promotion. Sadly, we're without our fervent Willie this evening. The man who stands tall, proud and forever upright has decided he needs some time off. It's terribly exhausting being that firm all the time. We wish him a well-earned rest, though I must say it feels very un-Will-like to go floppy on us at the last minute. But don't worry, to balance things out, we do have Kai. Where Will is rigid, steadfast and firmly on the right, Kai is, well, floppy, feeble and fuelled entirely by whackery and wokery. The man's entire diet consists of tofu, gender theory and whatever The Guardian is pushing this week. Which explains why his arguments, much like his handshake, have all the strength of a wet paper bag. Still with us is the resident glamorous GP, Dr. Renee, on hand to diagnose Britain's latest political ailments, prescribe common sense and roll her eyes at the absolute state of Kai's nutrient deficiencies. And joining the panel tonight is Emma Trimble. She's sharp, she's fearless, and she's about to discover once again that she can handle the Saturday Five initiation ritual. Namely, being talked over, contradicted and having to dodge Alex Armstrong's many attempts to go viral. Welcome, Emma. And of course, we couldn't do this show without talking about the BBC this week, my friends, because they're well and truly cooked. The same BBC that hounded pensioners and single parents over licence fees, as well as students, it's now facing a potential terror probe over a Hamas funding documentary. Now, I always suspected that BBC coverage leaned towards Hamas, but I didn't think they were literally passing the collection plate around for them. I mean, you have to hand it to them. Most broadcasters just spread propaganda of some sort. The BBC is out here offering direct debit plans for jihadis. If you've watched their programming lately, you'd think they were at war with their own audience. Turns out There might well have been funded one. At this rate, the next season of Doctor Who will be filmed in a Gaza tunnel, with a special appearance from a non-binary decolonial Palestinian correspondent who only reports in spoken word poetry. I tell you. As always, we want to hear from you. Drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. And don't forget your questions for Ask the Five. No topics is off limits. And vote for your favourite five. Go to gbnews.com/poll to vote for your favourite five. We'll bring you live updates on that poll throughout the show.
Do you not need to say who won last week?
Renee won last week. We didn't get to see it because President Trump took to the stage, but Renee wants me to point out that she got 40-something% of the vote, and Alex has already voted for himself. The vote opens at 6 and it closes at 8:30. We'll bring you those results. Now, before this descends into total chaos or Willie springs up into the studio to curb his fear of missing out, it's time for your Saturday Night News with Sophie Reaper.
Thank you, Darren, and a very good evening to you. We'll start with some breaking news from the last hour now, as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has arrived for his visit at Downing Street. Just a warning, the following footage contains some flashing images. Sir Keir Starmer was there to greet President Zelenskyy as the pair shook hands outside Number 10 before entering to begin their bilateral meeting. The Ukrainian president is in the UK ahead of a major defence summit in London tomorrow. Sir Keir and his Ukrainian counterparts sat down in Downing Street, where both men expressed their desire for peace and thanked the British public for their support of Ukraine.
Absolute determination to stand with you, unwavering determination, and to achieve what we both want to achieve, which is a lasting peace for Ukraine based on sovereignty and security for Ukraine. So important for Ukraine, so important for Europe, and so important for the United Kingdom.
We are happy and we count on your support, and really, we're really happy that we have such partners and such friends.
Meanwhile, Volodymyr Zelenskyy's arrival in the UK follows his brief meeting in the White House yesterday, in which talks with Donald Trump descended into a row. The US president said Zelenskyy can, quote, come back when he's ready for peace. The Ukrainian president travelled to Washington, D.C. as he attempted to secure a ceasefire agreement with Russia and a possible mineral deal with the US. However, the visit ended prematurely, with the signing of an agreement and a joint press conference cancelled following the clash. And elsewhere, Bore Da, happy St David's Day to all of our viewers in Wales and those who are celebrating around the world. Marked every 1st of March, this day commemorates the Welsh patron saint, as well as all things history and culture in Wales. Those are your latest headlines for now. More from me in the next hour, but now it's back to Darren and your Saturday 5.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thanks, Sophie. It's Saturday night, my friends, and you're with the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes, and I can promise that you're in for a very lively show. We're going to crack on with tonight's first debate, but before I do that, I want Kai to say something.
Diolch o galon, Darren. Croeso I dydd Sadwrn 5 heno, a ni edrych mlaen at ddadl diddorol iawn.
Not a clue. Right. No, but it is St David's Day.
It is St David's Day.
You know,
which is very important to Welsh people.
I thought we'd get some Welsh interaction in there because, you know, Wales, Kai, they're voting the right way. Reform.
And I'm going to win my bet.
Yeah. All right, OK, we're going to get straight to our first panellist tonight, and Alex insisted that he so we'll let Alex go first.
Well, I think it's very important to first say that I am 5'11". If you can consider that short, then you can consult my legal team.
That's with
Darren.
Your heels on.
Yeah, that's with my heels off. But let's get started, because it's been a relatively serious week, hasn't it? Or at least the last 24 hours have. Now, of course, where have you been if you haven't seen the Trump-Zelenskyy blow-up? I hope we've got a little clip here just to refresh your memory if you haven't watched it at all.
Not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. But right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's back to you. Far more than a lot of people said they should have.
What a phenomenal blow-up. I mean, look, whatever you want to say about that interview, that debate they basically had live on air, there's one thing you can't take away from America, and that is that now, under the Trump administration, there is more transparency and honesty. Whether it should have played out in front of the public and whether you agree with Zelenskyy or Trump is irrelevant, because tonight I want to talk about how the UK has responded. Now, first of all, the British government have sort of refused to give a line on this. Hopefully we'll hear a little bit more from Starmer in the coming 24 hours. However, leftists online have lost their marbles over it. They have reacted in a way that I could only call an act of national self-harm. We have some tweets here, perhaps, to show you from one of the commentators. This is Dan Hodges. He said, "I don't care about the Chagos. I don't care about a trade deal. And frankly, after the spectacle, I don't care about the special relationship anymore. The invite from the king should be rescinded immediately. It's time to take a proper stand against Trump and his thugs." Well, quite frankly, that's insane. It's ridiculous, isn't it? This is the largest superpower in the world who has massive amounts of economic prosperity, the biggest military, and has now, the other day, got very friendly relations with our Prime Minister, which we should be thankful for, actually. So, this act of national self-harm, what would they rather have? Well, they'd rather have us rejoin the EU, create an EU army, this corporate institution that acts only behind the scenes. Have a look at how the EU responded last night to some of these. You can see here, tweet after tweet of the same exact line. Be brave, be strong, be fearless. That's not something I would expect from a democratic institution. It's what I'd expect from an authoritarian nightmare. We should never go back to the EU. We should never rejoin that institution and put our country at risk. I hope Keir Starmer does the right thing and backs America in this one.
Yeah, well, Alex, I couldn't agree more. I'm not. A lot of people are saying, hang on, I'm very deeply wedded to the idea of supporting European security and all the rest of it. I do agree with that. I think in a couple of years' time, the economy bounces back in Russia and they build up munitions and are a stronger threat to European security. I get all of that. Of course, Europe needs to be doing more on defence. But I don't think that we need to glorify and almost he's become like a saint, right? We treat Zelenskyy on sort of bended knee. I don't understand all of that. I really don't get it.
Do you know, the last time I saw tweets going out like that had exactly the same wording in them was in COVID. When the bot farms and the farmer and all of the names that you would expect sent out thousands, millions of tweets about you must take your vaccine, it's going to save lives, or save lives, whatever it was. That's sinister because it means there's this movement against the most powerful man in the world.
Well, it's unironic, isn't it? I mean, the way that Dan Hodges is as an example here, I mean, there's plenty of other people who've done the same thing. He's reacted. It seems petulant, isn't it? Unironically petulant. And they're saying we don't want to support Trump because he's doing all these things. He's speaking it, he's saying, oh, I want to deal this, I want to do that. Well, they're saying the same thing. They want to do this massive act of national self-harm, don't they?
You making this up to be some sort of left-wing plan, right? You mentioned Dan Hodges. He was a columnist for the Mail,
not just
the
Dan.
Telegraph.
Dan's a good example, but there's plenty of others.
In The Spectator as David Cameron's favourite columnist. He's hardly a socialist, right?
I'd hardly say David Cameron is a conservative.
Also, there's no indication of even a whiff of this sentiment that you've talked about amongst any Labour MPs, let alone the cabinet. So for you to say that the left wing is saying this, the left wing is saying that, they're crying out. That is ridiculous. Come on.
But you mean, look, Kai, the reality is that this... Would you agree with some of these arguments that we should stop the trade deal? Get rid of Chagos.
No, of course not.
It is ridiculous, isn't it? And that's the point. I'm saying we've got these massive calls for people saying we've got to drop America as the leader of the free world. We've got to distance ourselves from Donald Trump. We've got to stop him from coming
that.
Well, they are. I just put out a tweet.
You know that. I know that.
Kai,
Nobody's
I just
serious.
gave you evidence.
Nobody's... Oh, did you?
I just showed you the tweet on the screen. There's plenty of people calling
some
for
tweets.
It. Yeah.
The problem, I think, the problem is that so much of the reaction, and not just with this, but anything to do with Ukraine, is so emotionally driven. And actually, if, as I do, and I have consistently, you know, I think it's in the UK's strategic interest to support Ukraine against Russia. To a point, if you genuinely do care about Ukraine and you care about peace in Europe and you care about the Ukrainian people getting their land back, then I think we need to move away from these sort of two camps where there are only these two emotionally acceptable positions to have, which are either very strictly for or strictly against. And actually, I think that Zelenskyy put Trump in a very difficult position in that press conference. Everything that happened there should never have happened. Maybe someone from the press team should have literally pulled the plug. But he put them in a difficult position because if America is going to be the neutral arbiter, or at least the even-handed arbiter between Ukraine and Russia, it isn't possible for them to do that if it comes out very firmly on Zelensky's side, as he was effectively asking them to do during that press conference. So he put them in a very difficult position. And I think, actually, if world leaders care about Ukraine and they care about, you know, Zelenskyy getting what he's asking for, then they ought to speak to him honestly and say, look, if you want America to help you and you need America to help you, you're going to have to go about this in a different way. Because the way the American public, I think, are seeing it at this point is they see him as being insolent and petulant. Now, whether or not that's true is a different debate. But if he wants what he's asking for, he's going to need to contend with that.
But what would you say to someone like Kai, who would say, well, can you imagine if America during World War II had got together with Adolf Hitler and said, come on, lads, let's work this out?
I would say it was a ridiculous comparison.
It is. You do think they're Nazis, though, right?
Or indeed, which part of the UK would you give up if we were invaded tomorrow?
But I wouldn't. I want Ukraine to get back all of its territory.
But it's not going
That's
to.
not going to happen. That's not even on the table.
But it can't
and
be
the Trump
on the
administration
table.
has ruled that out. We know that.
But it's not going to be. I mean, the only country that has the weight to support Ukraine against Russia is the United States. And the reality is that even though I would like for Ukraine to have all of its territory back, I have consistently been absolutely unequivocally in favour of Ukraine's right to sovereignty over its own land. You've got to work one step at a time with the things that are possible and are on the table. And the reality is actually that this over-emotional response on all sides isn't going to get to that the conclusion that almost everybody wants.
It makes me laugh, by the way, that Europe are like, we'll be the new America. Please, you couldn't fight your way out of a paper bag.
They couldn't even agree on a peace deal arrangement. I mean, for goodness sake, the EU is a joke, and that's what these people are advocating for. They're advocating for us to go closer to the European Union. It's got no innovation, no economic growth, that is clearly incoherent.
Well, this is the wedge issue for that, isn't it? It surely is. But I think if you watch that interview from start to finish, it was going fine until Zelenskyy said to the American people on air that you two are going to have your problems, just not yet, they're coming. And that was when Trump saw red, because he doesn't want the American people to think that they might be heading for trouble somewhere. He wants them to think that it's rosy.
But it's also diplomatically idiotic.
Because I have thought that myself over the last few years. Where is his gratitude? You know, he comes to Britain and asks for more money. Well, actually, we're up a certain creek without a paddle.
Well, I think they think, if Zelenskyy thinks he's doing us a favour fighting this war, and I am, as whilst I can totally and I want Ukraine to win this war, I want to say that unequivocally. However, it is important when we're giving billions and billions, trillions perhaps in total of our hard-earned cash to Ukraine, that there is gratitude alongside that. The reality is that a lot of these people who are advocating for the extension of this war inevitably want Ukraine to take their land back, and I understand that. But even today, a poll came out, and over 70% of Ukrainian people want the war to end.
Well, can I ask, because Leslie's written in and says, Darren, if I was any more right-wing, I would fall off the edge pledge, and I want a peace deal. But the way Vance and those journalists humiliated Zelenskyy over the suit, acting like playground bullies, taunting a kid. I actually disagree with Leslie, because I think actually there is something to be said about him looking like he's cosplaying.
But I said this to you and you disagreed with me. I think that bit was completely unnecessary and was nasty.
Yeah. Well, if you turn up...
I actually agree with
the American taxpayer.
I think both can be true. I think that it's actually, Churchill wore a suit throughout the war. There's no excuse to not dress appropriately just because you're fighting a war. He's not there in military fatigues. He's there in a T-shirt and normal trousers. But at the same time, Renee is right that this is not the way that you conduct yourself diplomatically at a press conference in public. It's not.
OK, we'll leave Ukraine there. But still to come tonight, we'll get your reaction on that incredible row between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelenskyy. And an awkward moment for Sir Keir Starmer when the US Vice President says free speech in the UK is under threat. Is it? We'll discuss next if I'm not arrested under Angela Rayner's new Islamophobia law.
Exactly.
You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Tubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
We often ponder the state of the nation. So this story then really caught my eye. A head teacher who some people have dubbed, I quote, the head teacher from hell. He's caught the press attention because he has a school in Wales. He's now looking at introducing Saturday detentions. He says that we have to stop mollycoddling kids and start to bring back good old-fashioned discipline.
We are fed up with kind of being soft on discipline. We are fed up of hiding behind words like well-being and safe spaces. There has to be a consequence to an action. And that's what we're trying to instill at Caldecott.
And tell me about the parents of some of these kids, because I would argue that much of the breakdown in society does come now. You see these kids on public transport, they don't have earphones in, they just listen to their music, they've got no respect for their elders. I know I sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but it all seems to have kind of broken down. And then I find myself, Alan, thinking, well, what are the parents doing in all of this? Are the parents supportive of your approach or not?
So we've got 1,300 parents. 2 or 3 took their children out of the school because they didn't agree with it. About 20 sort of kicked back, but now are on board. I think that's a great statistic. It shows that the overwhelming vast majority of people want this kind of discipline. And I don't blame young people today for the state of the culture or the nation. They are the fruit of it. I believe that if my generation puts in place strict discipline, firm boundaries, no means no, then we will get the young people that we want and that, we deserve.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Please continue getting in touch. We've started quite the debate there on gbnews.com/yoursay. And don't forget the poll. You can vote for your favourite 5 at gbnews.com/poll.
She's already winning.
The vote will... She rigs it.
She's already winning.
Single week.
Oh, she hasn't even said anything yet.
She's texted every single member of her family and every ex-husband she's ever had and asked them to vote. The vote will close at 8:30 p.m. Rigged by Dr. Renee.
It's rigged by Dr. Renee.
Now it's
She's
time.
a dictator. She's a dictator.
She is. She's getting no money from me. Now it's our next debate. Right, who's going to go next?
That'll be me.
Oh.
So, no tough competition, actually, this week for the most exciting press conference. But the President of the United States, J.D. Vance, did meet with our Prime Minister. So let's take a little look at a clip from that.
Look, I said what I said, which is that we do have, of course, a special relationship with our friends in the UK and also with some of our European allies. But we also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British. Of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and, by extension, American citizens. So that is something that we'll talk about today at lunch.
We've had free speech for a very, very long time in the United Kingdom, and it will last for a very, very long time.
Well, methinks the lady doth protest too much. I don't know what you think about that at home, but so much has happened in the last week that suggests that that just simply isn't true, never mind in the last couple of years. Or what about the grandmother that had the police come and knock at her door because she had criticised a Labour councillor, and it seemed then that she was reported to the police by that Labour councillor's partner, and then ended up having to have a phone call with the police where they said that they were going to advise her on what she'd commented by asking in a closed Facebook group for that person's resignation. And not the first time either that somebody connected to the Labour Party has made a complaint about someone. What about the Royal Marine, who was actually charged and thankfully acquitted for putting a video up following the Southport attacks? We've seen so many examples over the last couple of months where, you know, you could very easily see yourself in prison, where you know, somebody like the MP Mike Amesbury ended up getting a suspended jail sentence for actually beating somebody up. And the message that sends to people is really that if you want to settle a score, then you'd be better off turning to violence rather than debate. That's not the sort of message that you want to be sending to people in society with law and order. And now we have Alison Pearson, the very well-known award-winning journalist from The Telegraph, who's taking a case against Essex police after all of this stuff over the reporting of non-crime hate incidents, which the Free Speech Unions say that they estimate that 65 non-crime hate incidents are being reported a day, and the College of Policing seem to think that the solution to the public's backlash against non-crime hate incidents is just simply to rename the things rather than the fact that they're odious in the first place. And all of that put together, we now have had this week Angela Rayner announcing her Islamophobia committee, and that's going to be considering a definition of Islamophobia that, according to Lord Cutton, the Under-Secretary of State for Faith, is actually in contradiction to the Equality Act. So all things considered, I'd really like to know what you think at home, whether or not Keir Starmer is actually telling porkies to our American friends across the pond. I nearly said across the channel.
Well, Emma, I do have to apologise there, because Alex and I burst out laughing during your speech, and it wasn't because of the substance of what you were saying. It's because we clicked on the poll, and the poll says Darren Grimes, Emma Trimble, Dr. Renee, nothing new there, but then it gets to Alice Armstrong. So Alex is now transgender. And,
just trying to goad me, aren't you?
It wasn't deliberate. It wasn't.
I'm shaving the beard and growing my hair fast.
Yeah, you are.
We'll take it step by step.
Well, you'll do anything to get on telly. And Kai, the substance of what Emma was saying there, it paints a picture of a deeply authoritarian, anti-free speech state that suggests that J.D. Vance was right to warn of the oppressive jackboot of this Labour government.
The idea that J.D. Vance has a leg to stand on when it comes to free speech is ridiculous. The hypocrisy is just blinding. The DOJ has already begun to target Trump's political enemies in the United States. Oh. The man who was the last Trump VP was almost killed in the Capitol riots.
No, he was not.
Yes, he was.
No, he wasn't.
Who is J.D. Vance to lecture us.
All right. Well, I have a
on
question.
free speech.
I have a question then for you, because you can say that JD Vance is a hypocrite if you want, and I'll disagree with you. But it seems that from what you're saying that you agree that free speech is a good thing. So what then do you say to Keir Starmer saying that we have plenty of it, if that's his assessment when you look at all of these facts? Surely you can admit he's telling porkies.
No. He's saying that we've had free speech for a long time.
Past tense.
We have had.
Yeah, past tense.
That's actually the
Don't worry, we're going to cut down on that.
But we've had free speech for such a long time. He's completely right. He's not lying. But there are clearly ways in which the police have acted completely inappropriately. And there are people who have been locked up or people who have been put into sentences they should never have done.
But what about...
We can all sensible people can agree on that.
But what about the Labour councillor who actually reported...
we adopt the US model,
You know, it suggests there's an attitude on the part of the Labour Party towards speech that they disagree with.
Yes.
Look,
please separate the Labour Party and government and the civil service. These are very different things.
Let's just touch on the one thing that I think is deeply concerning, which is this Islamophobia.
I was just going to say
that are coming out. I mean, if anyone should be worried before, that you should be doubly worried now. Because
And the
it's
Labour
going to be
Party,
defined as racism.
The Labour Party actually adopted it and still adopt it, despite the fact that Lord Khan said it's in contradiction of the Equality Act.
They don't know the difference between racism and religion.
Dominic Grieve. Ugh, odious man. I'll be getting in trouble. Kai, can I ask you this question? Our good friend Mark's written in. Mark says, why should Islam have an elevated right to protection above all other religions? And if it's not about protecting Islam and it's about protecting Muslimness, then why call it Islamophobia? You know, we don't really go about saying Christophobia, despite the fact that there are an awful lot of oppressed Christians.
Or Jewophobia.
Just because there's not a word for discrimination against Christians doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
So do they not matter?
And I really don't think that we're putting discrimination against Muslims as a higher pedestal.
Well, it's the only one we're actually having a working party
about. Or Christians or Hindus or anybody else in the UK. I just don't accept the premise of that.
There's no other definition of any kind of anti-religious hatred that actually conflates race and religion in a way that would silence criticisms of that religion.
So I can
as this would silence
Christianity,
criticisms
I
of
can
Islam.
criticise Sikhism, Buddhism, I can criticise being a sodding Jedi, but if I dare criticise Islam as a religion...
Can I ask a question? Can I pose a question
A very
to you?
brief one.
If I were to take a Quran and pop it on the floor, do you think I'd get a knock at the door from the police?
Yes.
And do you think that would be appropriate for me to get a knock at the door from the police?
No.
So does that mean then that it has a sacred status under law, regardless
of
it is?
It will become a blasphemy law. But also, I think the really worrying part of this is the conflation between racism, race, ethnicity, and religion. Being able to criticise a religion and its values and its texts and its morals. That is the problem here. It's not. This definition that Dominic Grieve's put forward is not about the religion. It's actually about racism. It's about skin colour, ethnicity, which to me is dangerous.
All right. James says, I'm by no means left-wing, but Kai has a point. We haven't had free speech. It's the judiciary that is corrupt and not enforcing our laws as they should be. Purge the UK swamp. Purge the swamp. He's so deep in the swamp, you might as well call him Shrek. Now, still to come tonight, someone else just commented in saying his wardrobe's as dodgy as his views. Now, still to come tonight.
Not again.
Are you willing to give up kebabs, holidays and dairy, all in the name of net zero? Jet Z and Kai Wilshaw will explain more. And Labour are planning to attack Nigel Farage. Are they running scared? With the Saturday 5, we're live on GB News.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The recent showers over the Greek islands are fading away, so turning sunnier here, but we are looking at more wet weather across southern Spain and the Canaries. Through Sunday, there'll be plenty of showers over southern parts of Croatia, and there'll be some heavy showers on the west coast of Italy, Sardinia and Sicily, seeing some showers. Look at this wet weather over southern Spain and feeding down northerly winds, bringing a chill to Madeira, and plenty of showers over the Canaries. They'll continue well into next week. Bye for now.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody
in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
We featured the hunt for Piglet, the Chihuahua, who vanished after a burglary on a canal boat in Uxbridge last March.
Well, his owner, Mel, desperate to be reunited, has recruited the services of pet detective Colin Butcher.
And what is a pet detective, Colin?
The best way to describe it is I'm a private detective, but I only specialise in animal cases.
And do you ever have to deal with dog abductions? We know that they're happening more and more now, aren't they? They happen very frequently, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Pet Abduction Act. I still class them as dog thefts because that's what they are.
Yeah, this came in under the Tories, didn't it, in August. So a lot of people wouldn't be aware of this, that it wasn't actually a crime, was it? To steal a dog or cat.
And animals were treated as an item of property, and there's no consideration whatsoever for the owner's torment and mental anguish, which is considerable when your pet goes missing.
Of course it is, Colin. The thing is that if the police treat it like someone's nicked your bike and whatever, that's very unfortunate and you think really bad, but you can always buy a new bike.
Yes.
What is it like, and you've seen it up close and personal, when people lose something so dear to them?
The heart has no way of deciding how much grief and anguish there will be, whether it's a member of your family or whether it's a pet. So you still suffer, but you also have that horrible feeling of guilt that you shouldn't be grieving that way, or you feel guilty that you could have done more before your animal was stolen or went missing. And then there are people thinking, well, it's only a pet. So it's a really, really difficult time for owners.
The People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Claire says it's true to say we've had free speech for a long time. She's put had in capital letters, until recently. It's now quickly been eroded under Labour, although the Conservatives had a hand in it as well.
Well, I was going to say, free speech in COVID, for many of us, did not exist.
No.
Well, you know more than most people about it.
Yeah, you were tracked and monitored, not just by the men. By His Majesty's government.
By His Majesty's government.
Right, now it's time for our next debate, I regretfully admit, because it's Kai.
Guess who?
Take it away, Kai. Happy St David's Day.
Thank you so much. Well, look, as I said before, Reform need to decide between the United Kingdom and Russia. Now, the Labour Party is finally attacking Reform on its Russia flip-flopping. It's been no secret that the two main parties and all the other parties have been grappling with the Reform threat, trying to figure out what the momentum and the new polling for Reform all means for them. Yet Farage and the Reform Party this week seem to have gained a massive own goal, tying themselves up in knots, trying to appease Donald Trump, while also saying, yes, we obviously believe in the UK's security. They've somehow suggested that Ukraine provoked Russia into attacking it. And that's also brought up, of course, 2014 comments by Nigel Farage that Vladimir Putin was his most admired leader across the world. Now, guess what? Yet again, our absent Reform MPs are out of kilter with the rest of the country. 7 out of 10 of Brits agree that it's important for Ukraine to win the war against Russia. Yet here's Nigel Farage calling for elections in Ukraine, for a timetable on elections. When might that be? We've had millions and millions of citizens of Ukraine leave the country, and many of their territories are still under bombardment. Now, what's going on, Nigel? What's it going to be? Will you stick up for British interests, or will you be ending up siding with Trump? It's squeaky bum time for Reform and for Nigel Farage, the UK or Russia?
Squeaky bum time.
What do you think?
He's topping every single major poll in the entire country. He's come out and said that we need a security arrangement to ensure that Russia can't go back into Ukraine in the midst of any agreement that is ultimately reached. To what extent is demanding that we have some form of troop that would prevent Russia from being able to re-enter, demanding that America, what happened yesterday was regretful? How is any of this a pro-Putin apology to her?
I mean, Kai,
I think you're on cloud 9. You're off your rocker.
You are. And actually, that comment about Putin, he made in 2014. So talk about looking back in time, which is what Labour like to do because they don't want to look forward about what they're not doing. But the other thing to think about is actually Farage has been the only one in the room here who's actually acted like a diplomat, because when Trump came out and called Zelenskyy a dictator, Farage didn't come out and say, yes, Trump is actually absolutely right. He disagreed with him, knowing that he's his friend and he's the one who gets on well with him, but he still wasn't going to just fall into Trump's pocket. He carefully and cleverly negotiated that and said, however, Zelenskyy should have some elections soon, as he should.
And I just want to also add on your comments about Nigel Farage saying that Russia was goaded into the war, because those comments were actually supported by a NATO secretary, previous Secretary General, who was a Labour peer before that, just to be clear to the audience, who also said that we should not have moved NATO closer to Russia, given the agreements we made after the end of the Cold War, which is what Nigel Farage also supported at the time. And actually, many politicians have said that that statement is factually true. You can disagree with it if you want to, but that were the terms that even the NATO Secretary-General
also, not to be a pedant, but all of this talk about the absent Reform MPs is just mythology at this point. I mean, very often they tweet from inside the chamber saying, no, I'm here. There was a tweet put out by one journalist listing the top 10 most vocal MPs in Parliament, and 2 Reform MPs, given that they've only got 5, as highly disproportionate. So they are there. They are, engaging with all of these issues.
Written questions aren't the same as answering in the chamber.
No, they were physically there. They can't speak unless they're allowed to.
Okie dokie. We'll leave Kai to his delusions, because now it's time for Dr. Renee, a woman who has no of this nonsense.
None of this. OK, so the Climate Change Committee issued their latest missive this week, and if they get their way, life will never look the same as we have known it. It's changed slightly, but it's going to change beyond all of your dreams. And they usually do get their way. Their last 6 budgets have been completely adopted and approved by these governments who are wedded to this delusion. So what you eat, how often you go to Barbados or Malaga, how many pieces of clothing you buy a year and how much meat you eat will be controlled by these global elites trying to save the planet. We are the problem, but they will reprogram us. Don't worry. But don't assume that the Climate Change Committee has got to this point on their own. When I read this report this week, I wasn't surprised. I first started hearing these kind of murmurings about 10 years ago, and it was always filtering down from these global organisations, the United Nations, the WEF, and then being implemented in reports from big contractors around the world like Arup. Look up Arup C40 cities, and it's laid bare for you what they want for us. They actually give us some targets. So there are 2030 targets, and then there's an ambitious target, just in case we can overshoot that. Do you like driving? Forget that. The 2030 target is that only 190 people in 1,000 will own a car, and the ambitious target, no one will own a car. Do you like flying? Forget that. 2030 target, you will take 1 short-haul flight in 3 years. Ambitious target, one short-haul flight in 4 years. Oh, sorry, the other way, in 2 years and 3 years. Do you like clothes? Well, you won't have any, because the 2030 target is you're only allowed to buy 8 pieces of clothing a year. Isn't that kind? The ambitious target, 3, because we will borrow clothes from other people, and I'm not borrowing them from you, Darren. And do you like meat? Now, you'll only be allowed at 2030 to eat 16 kilograms of meat per person. That sounds like a lot. It's not. You usually eat 61 kilograms. The ambitious target, no meat and no dairy. This is the future that they envisage for us. You can see why they don't care about farmers. We won't need farms or meat anywhere. It is all coming together under this globalist plan. Get rid of meat, planes, cars, clothes. It's really weird. While we go about our lives, these massive corporations are busy at speed in the background planning on how our lives are going to change. And if you want to do all of those things that bring us joy, you need to wake up, read the C40 Cities report and start fighting back.
All right.
Of course, this is only for us mere plebs. The people who are actually pushing it will continue doing all of those things.
Exactly. It's just like the Just Stop Oil prats that glue their up. I nearly said... glue their bottoms to the road. They always live privileged, comfortable lives, and they can afford to
go to Barbados on holiday.
Absolutely, yeah.
Or Saudi Arabia, perhaps.
Carl, you're someone that jets around the world. You've just come back from Saudi Arabia, but you passionately believe in net zero. You're a rank hypocrite, aren't you?
No, I'm not, and I always offset my flights.
How? Kills cows.
Through paying money.
Well, the will be enough for the flights itself.
Stop it. Look,
you're planting a tree every 10 seconds.
He's bought a carbon sink from one of the impoverished farmers. That's what it is.
It's only right that people who choose certain lifestyles choose to bear the burden of what that means for the environment. Now,
so I have to eat insects instead of meat?
No, not at all. Frequent flyers, 1% of super emitters are responsible for 50% of aviation emissions.
Right.
Is that not ridiculous? We're not talking about your average family.
Well, you're
not talking about your average flyer, because also only 11% of the world's population flew last year.
Oh, but those super emitters would probably be...
top echelon.
Hang on.
Okay.
And it's only right that a tax should be placed on them.
Yes, you're correct, but it is never the tax going to the right people. It's always going to the poorest in society. And people like Sadiq Khan, who are a part of the C40 city, are flying here, there and everywhere. Ed Miliband, net zero...
And they should be
flying to Brazil for a meeting.
They should be taxed for that.
Yes, he should
and they would be taxed for that.
Yeah,
under
but if
these
Ed
plans.
Miliband gets taxed for it, guess who pays for it?
Exactly.
And who are these people to tell me how much meat I should eat in a year?
All right, okay.
Communism.
Moving on. Sir Keir Starmer loses another minister. Is it a crisis for him? Kai says no. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News. You don't need that. Just go.
Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead to next few days, it remains largely dry across the south, but further north we will continue to see some further rain from time to time. We still have this weak weather front across the country at the moment, separating the country in two. Still some rain left on it as we move through the course of this evening across northern England, but either side plenty of clear skies. Could see some mist and fog return across parts of East Anglia, southeastern parts of England too, and then later on in the night we could just see some mist and fog also for Northern Ireland and southern Scotland. Under the clearest skies, another cold night, especially in the south, a widespread frost here, temperatures easily falling below freezing. So we start Sunday morning off on a fairly bright note across eastern Scotland, but cloud already beginning to spill back in across northwestern Scotland with an increase in wind here too. Southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, murky start in places with some mist and fog, but that should gradually lift as the day goes on. And for much of England and Wales, a fairly sunny start, and that really is going to continue as we go through the course of the day. It's here where we see the lion's share of the sunshine. Northern England, a little bit more limited with sunshine, with a mix of cloud and sunshine, but really the cloudiest skies will be for parts of Scotland, especially later on as this band of rain just approaches in from the Atlantic. Temperatures on Sunday very similar to what we saw on Saturday, so highs reaching around 10 to 11 degrees. So in the sunshine, I think feeling pleasant enough for the time of year. A look ahead to Monday, another cold, frosty start in the south, but once again, largely sunny skies here. A band of rain just slowly working its way southeastwards, but weakening as it does so. So by the time it gets to England, very little rainfall left on it, and then behind it we'll see further showers. And really very little changes middle of the week, largely settled in the south, but further rainfall at times across the north.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to the Saturday Five. Who's up next? Well, it's me. Hi. Now, my friends, if you want to understand everything about Labour's priorities, just look at the latest resignation. Labour Minister Annalise Dodds, she is a woman so catastrophically bad. She was Shadow Chancellor for all of 2 minutes. Sir Keir Starmer booted her out in favour of Rachel Thebes. And why did she resign? Was it over Labour hammering farmers with taxes when they're already on their knees? Nope. Was it over pensioners being left to freeze, paying the world's highest electricity costs without any winter fuel support? Nope. Was it over national insurance hikes, shutting down British businesses and costing people their jobs? Not a peep. Nope. Annalise Dodds quit because Sir Keir Starmer dared to suggest cutting foreign aid to, brace yourselves, actually fund Britain's thinning armed forces. Imagine that, putting British interests before bankrolling every pet project abroad. That was her red line. That apparently it was a step too far for these lefties in the Labour Party. And what exactly is this sacred, untouchable foreign aid budget funding? Well, I can tell you, over the years that I've been active, your hard-earned cash has been sent to the likes of China to help them research how to cut their salt consumption. Because obviously what Beijing really needs is British taxpayers watching their sodium intake. And then there's the cash funnelled into the Ethiopian Spice Girls Tribute Act. Yep, I'm not joking. And if that wasn't bad enough, we're even bankrolling a scheme in India that sends text messages reminding people to drink less booze. Meanwhile, back in Britain, pensioners shiver in the cold, businesses collapse, and farmers are driven to ruin. It tells you, or it ought to, it probably doesn't for Kai, but everyone else, it tells you everything about them. Your taxes are fair game. Your pension, forget it. Your businesses, who gives a damn? But heaven forbid we stop chucking money at vanity projects abroad while our own people struggle. These globalist goblins have priorities, but we, my friends, well, we don't factor at all.
It's really shocking, isn't it? I mean...
Hang on, we've got some breaking news here. Zelenskyy has just left Downing Street after a meeting with Sir Keir Starmer. I think we've got some footage there. There we are. This is from earlier. Sir Keir Starmer leaving number 10 Downing Street with Vladimir Zelenskyy. They're off for a nice meal in a nice restaurant. Maybe Lord Ali will be there, who knows?
Do you think it's the same outfit?
I was just
or do you think he has a wardrobe of all the same outfits?
I think he's... I'm sorry, I'm going to say it again. He's cosplaying. That's what I think.
Well, he's got enough money
he should be wearing military fatigues,
well,
though.
Hang on, he's wearing
he does.
cargo
He's not a poor man anymore.
with a pull-up vest thing.
Yeah.
How is that not? Military, they don't go about wearing camouflage all the time, you know?
What I'm going to find interesting is how the Americans will see all these visuals. Of course, straight after he's booted out of Washington, he flies to London, Keir Starmer's embracing him, and I think that's going to be really interesting to see what American politicians make of it.
I think this is a dangerous game that we're playing. He's now had the invite to Sandringham tomorrow with the King, and the one thing that Trump actually triumphed with was offering the state visit with the King's letter. And now he's thinking, well, actually, I'm not
It's
that important, am I?
diplomatically very awkward as well, because obviously Keir Starmer was being praised for this great victory over the state visit, and now people have come out criticising him, saying, well, was he going to rescind the state visit from Trump after this? And so now, as Renee points out, at short notice, they're going to have effectively a state visit with Zelenskyy and the King. So
a lot of people are writing in saying things like, you are Russian apologists. I don't think we are, actually, and I find that a bit of a tie.
Do you know what I find really interesting about this? People have screamed at Israel to stop killing people, but they're more than happy to carry on killing people here.
It's an interesting point. Right, loads more to come tonight on the show. First of all, though, we're going to get you weather with Craig Snell.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead to next few days, it remains largely dry across the south, but further north we will continue to see some further rain from time to time. We still have this weak weather front across the country at the moment, separating the country in two. Still some rain left on it as we move through the course of this evening across northern England, but either side plenty of clear skies. Could see some mist and fog return across parts of East Anglia, southeastern parts of England too, and then later on in the night we could just see some mist and fog also for Northern Ireland and southern Scotland. Under the clearest skies, another cold night, especially in the south, a widespread frost here, temperatures easily falling below freezing. So we start Sunday morning off on a fairly bright note across eastern Scotland, but cloud already beginning to spill back in across northwestern Scotland with an increase in wind here too. Southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, murky start in places with some mist and fog, but that should gradually lift as the day goes on. And for much of England and Wales, a fairly sunny start, and that really is going to continue as we go through the course of the day. It's here where we see the lion's share of the sunshine. Northern England, a little bit more limited with sunshine, with a mix of cloud and sunshine, but really the cloudiest skies will be for parts of Scotland, especially later on as this band of rain just approaches in from the Atlantic. Temperatures on Sunday very similar to what we saw on Saturday, so highs reaching around 10 to 11 degrees. So in the sunshine, I think feeling pleasant enough for the time of year. A look ahead to Monday, another cold, frosty start in the south, but once again, largely sunny skies here. A band of rain just slowly working its way southeastwards, but weakening as it does so. So by the time it gets to England, very little rainfall left on it, and then behind it we'll see further showers. And really very little changes middle of the week, largely settled in the south, but further rainfall at times across the north.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could be one of two big winners in our latest giveaway. As we have two prize bundles that have to be won. There's two lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes, and I'm still along with Emma Trimble, Dr. Renee, Alex Armstrong, and Kai Wilshaw. Plenty more to come tonight, including what's got Alistair Campbell in a huff this time.
Utterly vile, that man. I've been thinking this for a while. It was disgusting. Utterly
kept the whole
disgusting.
thing going. Is he talking about himself? It's 7 p.m, and this is the Saturday 5. Still to come, I'll be scrapping with Kai as we ask if the BBC are found to have been funding a terrorist organisation, should we ditch the licence fee? Why should you be forced to pay it? And...
Gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
After the Oval Office meeting between President Zelenskyy and President Trump that descended into total chaos, I'll be asking a Ukrainian member of parliament what this means for the prospect of peace. And then we'll be answering your questions in Ask the Five. Send them through to gbnews.com/yoursay. And don't forget to vote for your favourite five at gbnews.com/poll. A lot of you saying you're struggling to find the poll.
I can't find it.
Listen, there's only so much I can do here. I try so hard, but sometimes, you know, pee up in a brewery springs to mind. The vote will close at 8:30 p.m. First of all, though, it's a Saturday Night News with Sophie Reaper.
Thank you, Darren. The time is just after 7 o'clock. Let's take a look at your latest headlines for this hour. Earlier on today, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy arrived at Downing Street for a meeting with Sir Keir Starmer. Just a warning, the following footage contains some flashing images. The British PM was there to greet President Zelenskyy as the pair shook hands outside Number 10 before entering to begin their bilateral meeting. The Ukrainian president is in the UK ahead of a major defence summit in London tomorrow. Meanwhile, Volodymyr Zelenskyy's arrival in the UK follows his brief meeting in the White House yesterday, in which talks with Donald Trump descended into a row. The Ukrainian president travelled to Washington, D.C. as he attempted to secure a ceasefire agreement with Russia and a possible mineral deal with the US. However, the visit ended prematurely, with the signing of an agreement and a joint press conference cancelled following the clash. After the row, President Trump spoke to reporters to address the controversial meeting. This is what he had to say.
We had a meeting today, as you know, with President Zelenskyy, and I would say it didn't work out exactly great from his standpoint. I think he very much overplayed his hand. We're looking for peace. We're not looking for somebody that's going to sign up a strong power and then not make peace because they feel emboldened, and that's what I saw happening. I'm looking for peace. We're not looking to go into a 10-year war and play games. We want peace.
And finally, in their most recent update this evening, the Vatican says the Pope remains in a stable condition. That's after suffering an isolated breathing crisis. They also said that Pope Francis is receiving alternating treatments to help him breathe as he continues to battle double pneumonia. But they added that he remains alert and oriented. The Pope was admitted to Rome's Gemelli Hospital on the 14th of February with a severe respiratory infection that triggered other complications. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in the next hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers very much, Sophie. It's Saturday night, my friends, and you're with the Saturday Five. My pronunciation of Saturday.
It's interesting.
I'm Darren Grimes. I promise that you're in for a very lively hour. Our guest, we're going to speak to a Ukrainian parliamentarian momentarily, but on that point of the accusation of the Russian apologism, I'm interested in expanding on that a little bit more, because it reminds me of you're a COVID denier or you're a climate denier. You can't express an opinion that goes against the grain on Ukraine because you'll be accused of being a Russian apologist.
Like I was saying before...
I vehemently disagree with everything Putin stands for, right? He is anti-gay, he's anti-everything I believe in, free speech, all of these other things. And I find the Russian apologist charge to be a baseless
But it's
smear.
not... The thing is, it's not actually in Ukraine's interest to silence people who are trying to take a slightly more nuanced view of a particular subject. Because I have been unequivocally in support of Ukraine for the entirety of this war. And as soon as you suggest, you know, something that you might regard as being, you know, a bit pragmatic, maybe somebody disagrees with you and it's slightly outside of the normal tracks, people from both sides will attack you saying that you support the opposite side.
The big problem that this ends up in is that actually nothing gets better. If you can't actually, it's the same with COVID. It's like challenge the science. We must challenge the politics. If the
same in net zero, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, if they're not open to feedback and people aren't open to hearing, okay, well, this is my opinion as to why this happened, doesn't mean I support Putin, because I also don't support Putin. I want Ukraine to win this war in the best way possible. But we've got to be able to have a conversation.
Paul has written in and she says, I'm sorry for misgendering you, Paul. Paul says Zelenskyy wears the jumper with the Ukrainian trident, or the trizub, as it symbolises national unity, independence and resilience. But I mean...
But he could wear that on a badge,
couldn't he? Not get it embroidered on a suit?
Look, I think the interesting thing is that we've had 3 years of a war where hundreds of thousands of young men have died, which is a tragedy. And we would all like to see Ukraine prosper against a dictator. However, the first time that anyone in that 3 years has used the word peace deal is now Trump. Not one of our politicians in the last 3 years has said, let's find a way to peace. They've just said, we have to arm Ukraine, let's throw more money.
And as soon as the word peace deal came up, the European Union scrambled, said, we need an EU army. It's like, actually, you want the war to continue. And that's what makes me so angry, is because I think we should always try to stop wars unless they are genuinely, you know, continuously coming at us.
But see, I think most people who take that view actually don't want the war to continue. What they want is for Ukraine to have its pre-war borders back, sovereignty over the area, and also to ensure that Russia never invades again. I think so. To be good faith about it, I think for the majority of people, that's what they're after, and they don't want peace at the sacrifice of Ukraine having full sovereignty.
I massively sympathise with that, because if it were my country, if this were the UK, I'd feel the same way. However, I'd always say to those people, and this is where people get angry at me, is I always say, you're not being realistic. Ukraine cannot storm into Russia and take the Kremlin and remove Putin. They have nuclear weapons, and Ukraine isn't in NATO.
But Alex would give Putin Wales.
Yeah.
He would.
But
and
that's the
Cornwall
point.
and Devon too, I'm sure.
But that's the very point. We've got 2 options here. We either find peace now, and unfortunately, because of where Ukraine is, they are going to have to give up some land. We should negotiate it for it to be as minimal as possible. Or we go full on with them, and we start a World War III with Russia, who have more nuclear heads than anyone else in the world.
Nobody wins that. I spoke to a NATO general on a trip to Hungary not that long ago, and he was telling me the reality of how much land Ukraine is losing every day, how many troops they're losing, which you don't hear about in the mainstream news because it's not the right thing to be able to say these days. And I'm telling you, if this war continues, Ukraine will lose more land, more people will die, and they will lose in the end. And actually, what we've got now is a deal that will end the war. Russia is damaged. They can't press ahead again. Ukraine will get security deals. We'll get peacekeeping troops. This will be good for Ukraine.
Kai, on that point then, Grumpy Grandad, good friend, says that's what I've been saying. There's lots of talk about backing Zelensky, but there's no talk of peace at all. And Elizabeth says, Keir's looking very smug tonight, but I fear he may live to regret it. And that's a key point, is it not? Are we hitching ourselves and annoying the Americans at our peril, really?
No, I think history will show Keir Starmer to be correct.
That would be a first.
It's a very...
I would have used a different word.
Nobody doubts it's an incredibly difficult topic. But you give Russia an inch and they'll take a mile. And what we are doing by acceding to some of Russia's claims and Russia's plans and what Trump would like us to do, that only leads to more conflict in Europe.
Right, you're right.
A strong Europe, a strong
is there not a very simple way to
backing.
hold Russia at bay? Is there not a very simple way? We say to Russia, if you invade again, straight into NATO and you're attacking a NATO country.
All right. Well, speaking of which, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, of course, met with Sir Keir Starmer in London this afternoon ahead of a summit of European leaders which will take place tomorrow. Before his arrival, Mr Zelenskyy publicly thanked President Trump for America's support. After their meeting in the Oval Office yesterday, of course, descended into a bit of a slanging match, abruptly halting peace talks and a signature on the dotted line between the two leaders. Sir Keir told President Zelenskyy in today's Downing Street meeting that Ukraine has the full backing of across the United Kingdom and that we will stand with them for as long as it may take. And some more breaking footage to show you here. The Chancellor of the Exchequer has been meeting with Zelenskyy and had a meeting down the line with Ukraine's Finance Minister in number 11. The black hole is
Why would he meet our Chancellor of the Exchequer?
Well, all right, we're going to go to our guest now. I'm delighted to welcome Ukrainian Member of Parliament, I beg your pardon, Alexei Goncharenko. Alexei, thank you very much for your time. Now, could you, first of all, set up how you feel the contrast between what took place yesterday in the US Oval Office and what took place today in number 10 Downing Street?
Hello, and I want to thank British people and the government of the United Kingdom for all support to Ukraine and for today's meeting of President Zelensky and in general for all support. But I want to tell you, I think what had happened yesterday was a disaster, and we need to heal this division, transatlantic division, which is deepening between United States and Europe in general, and United States and Ukraine. The only one person who was happy yesterday was Vladimir Putin, and that is a very bad story. I have a lot of questions to our president too. I think he should behave himself another way, but we have what we have today. I think that we need now some messengers, and it can be Prime Minister Starmer, who is in good relationships with both President Trump and President Zelensky, or Prime Minister Meloni from Italy, or President Macron from France. So we need somebody who will help us to rebuild these relationships, because we crucially need this. We can't lose the United States as our ally.
Yes, well, exactly. The question here is, do you think Europe can actually bridge the gap and fill the void that America will leave?
Partly, yes, but not completely. And I'm not sure that Europe will do this. I mean, I just want to remind you that even 1 million shell initiative from European Union failed. So North Korea is providing Russia with more artillery shells than the whole European Union is providing Ukraine. And North Korea is a joke economically, you know, it's not even serious comparing to European Union with 500 million people population. But that's what we have. So I am very thankful to all European leaders for all their statements of support. But unfortunately, we can't intercept Russian missiles with their statements, and we can't destroy Russian tanks with their tweets.
Indeed. I agree with that. Alex?
Yes. Well, obviously, you alluded to in the start of your statement there that perhaps we need an intermediate leader like Meloni or Starmer. Do you feel that President Zelensky and Trump's relationship now is completely irreparable?
You know, they are politicians. Fortunately, they did not kick one another. They did not, took sabers out or something like this. So I think in politics, everything is possible. So they can, it can be repaired, but it will not be an easy task.
One of our viewers has asked what Sir Keir Starmer and the Chancellor of the Exchequer have agreed to tonight. Is this a step in the right direction for Ukraine? Oh, you've got no inside knowledge for me.
I'm not in the details, but I'm sure it's something really important for Ukraine. And because we need support, especially in this moment.
Financial support.
Yeah, we need all types of support. You can imagine the country which is attacked every day with missiles, drones, which is fighting for 11 years. It's already more than 11 years of war and more than 3 years of full-scale invasion. You can just imagine how difficult the situation is.
Alexei, what would you say to, as a parliamentarian in Ukraine, what would you say to the British taxpayers who are going through a really hard time at the moment, and we're hearing the government say that there is an economic black hole in the nation, yet they often find money that can go to Ukraine, for example, billions of pounds worth of cash being handed over. What do you say to British taxpayers who might not like the fact that that is taking place?
First of all, I would like to say thank you. And that is super important for us. And we're really very, very, very thankful for all support we are receiving. Secondly, what I would remind 1994. 1994, Ukraine voluntarily gave up nuclear weapons under the guarantees from the United States, United Kingdom, and Russia. About Russia, everything is clear. But I want just to remind that support from the United Kingdom is not a charity. It was a responsibility taken in 1994 for non-proliferation policy. Just one question. If Ukraine would have nukes, how do you think? Would ever anybody attack us?
Yeah.
I agree with that statement,
Renee?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting statement, but unfortunately we can only deal with where we are, can't we? Do the Ukrainian people now, I mean, I imagine they've lived such a horrific last 3 years that they really want peace. What are they prepared to accept as a peace deal?
That's a very good question. I mean, I can't speak on behalf of all Ukrainian people, but I think I agree with you 100%. We need peace, and as quickly as possible. And I'm quite frustrated that President Trump tried to establish some deal with the Russians. There were many concerns about what this deal will look like. But my personal position was, let us at first look at this deal, because we didn't know what exactly was there. And if this deal would be inside our red lines, that would be great. If not, we always can say, sorry, no, we just can't accept this. My red lines is next. First, territorial integrity. Okay. Yes, it's violated de facto, but de jure, we need to be clear. This is Ukrainian territories and they're illegally occupied, even if they will be still controlled by Russia after end of hostilities. Okay. Second thing is our sovereignty, meaning that Ukraine makes its own choices about what army to have, what military production to develop, what alliances to join, European Union or NATO. I understand many countries now are not ready to take us to NATO, but we should be free to send a message to NATO that we want to be there, or to create another alliances. And number 3 is security guarantees. So if we will have these 3 things, I think we should go to peace.
It's a really honest answer.
It is, actually. I
very
thank
reasonable.
you, Alexei, for doing that. There's a Survation poll that's recently come out, and it says that 39% want peace negotiations if the war stalls, end the war as soon as possible, another 39%, and 16% say fight until victory.
So nearly 80.
Of Ukrainians.
Yeah.
That's
Of Ukrainian people, not British people. So, yes, that's the mood, it seems, Alexei.
I mean,
but thank you.
these numbers, what you said, are probably true. But I want just to tell you, we all want victory. But also, it's clear for us that, first of all, we already have victory. Russia tried to destroy Ukraine as an independent state, and they failed.
Exactly.
All right. Alexei, thank you very much for giving up your time tonight. I do appreciate your time. That's the Ukrainian parliamentarian Alexei Goncharenko there. And I did get your name correct there. I do apologise for that. Now, still to come tonight, who's Alice?
Absolutely vile, that man. I've been thinking this for a while. It was disgusting. Utterly
kept the whole
disgusting.
thing going.
Well, who's he on about? Who's Alistair Campbell on about? We'll be delving into our triggered tantrums next. Don't go anywhere, though, because after the break, I'll be taking on Kai in our Saturday scrap. He's pro the Beeb. Yeah, he wants a job. You're not going to want to miss it, my friends. You're with the Saturday 5. We're live on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
An advert for clothing retailer Next has been banned after it's judged to feature an unhealthily thin model.
Well, the advert, which was a product listing for denim leggings on the retailer's website, was deemed irresponsible by the Advertising Standards Authority after a single viewer complained.
A single viewer, OK. In its defence, Next said the ad was created with a strong sense of responsibility to both consumers and society, and while admitting the model was slim, they added that she had a healthy and toned physique that aligned with the nature of its product, its leggings.
Well, is it irresponsible to feature slim models in adverts? Let's debate this now. We're joined by the showbiz broadcaster and body positivity advocate Danielle Broadbent and the journalist and broadcaster Emma Trimble. Danielle, let's start from you. Did the Advertising Standards Authority get this one right?
Absolutely. I mean, loads and loads of brands sell leggings and they don't need to feature a super slim model to sell their clothing and their leggings. Now, from my point of view, the ASA are not saying that this woman is unhealthy. They're saying the way she's being styled and the way she's posing looks unhealthy. And with such a trend going on at the moment with no, curvy plus-size models in the fashion weeks, the trends of weight loss pens and things that are going around, are we encouraging, when we see adverts like this, vulnerable young teenage girls who are quite vulnerable anyway with body image? Are we encouraging eating disorders?
I think the idea that society is somehow, holding up anorexia as a virtue is just an anachronism. This woman is healthy. She's being body shamed for being healthy. I think people really just need to, and I know this sounds harsh, but I think they just need to get over themselves. It's this kind of scrutiny that is actually leading to people being so fixated on the way that people look.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to the Saturday Five. I would just like to put on record that all of our production and gallery team do work a pretty hard job.
I've sat in there, they are brilliant,
It
by
is
the way.
a brutal, brutal gig, and that does not go without thanks and praise. Now, speaking of thanks and praise, where's mine? Get in contact, gbnews.com/your say. Get your questions in fast.
More democratic interference from you, Darren.
Well, Renee's busy there voting for herself on the web browser.
She's got bots. She's got an army of bots.
I beg your pardon.
I'm under attack.
And don't forget to, as I've just mentioned, vote for your favourite five at gbnews.com/poll. That vote will close at 8:30 after Renee has rigged it. So right now, what have we got?
Wow.
Oh,
it's gone.
Right. Now, it's time for this. They didn't want my ego to be bruised. Right, now it's time for tonight's main event. BBC bosses were forced to withdraw a Gaza documentary from iPlayer last week after being accused of pro-Hamas bias. The broadcaster spent £400,000 of taxpayers' money, making the show in which the main narrator of the programme was revealed to be the son of a senior Hamas official. The corporation is also facing a potential criminal investigation by counter-terror police. Could this money have gone to Hamas? So I'm asking the question, if the BBC are found to have been funding a terrorist group, prescribed, of course, in this country, is it not time we start conversations about this activist broadcaster and scrap the restrictive and coercive licence fee, or as I call it, the telly tax? Seconds out, it's round one. Ding, ding, ding. Let's take it away. Kai, I should have asked you this before I started, so this is deeply unprofessional, but do you want to go first or shall I?
I'll go first.
Go on then, take it away, Buttercup.
This case, if true, is a complete disgrace.
If true.
Nobody can deny that. But to take this one instance and to infer that the whole BBC is tarred with that same brush is abominable. The fact is, the BBC is the jewel of our media landscape. It inspires, it informs, it entertains. The BBC World Service broadcasts in 42 languages. And for every £1 of the BBC's economic activity, £2.63 is generated in the economy.
For Hamas?
They've been there for our big moment, the Queen's death, the late Queen's death, the King's coronation. It has 21,000 staff. Of course, at some point, at some end, there is going to be a mistake. Now, to take one real issue that needs to be dealt with and to extrapolate it across the BBC, I think, is a disservice to our national broadcaster.
So, well, I don't give a flying flamingo about giving a disservice to our national broadcaster because they are a national disgrace and now an international disgrace as well. I feel so sorry for all of those Jews who gathered outside a broadcasting house holding placards making clear that the BBC associates itself with Hamas. This is an organisation that refused to actually define Hamas as a terrorist organisation. And now we hear of them giving this money over, potentially, to Hamas. Giving money to a terrorist group that has raped, beheaded and oppressed Israeli people for nothing other than being Jewish. Now, that to me ain't progressive politics, and I think these people are the lowest of the low. I want not a single person from Gaza to come to this country, and I imagine the BBC disagree with that view. The problem is, this all goes to the very heart of the issue with the BBC. They, in their elite bubble, all have the same politics, they're lefties, and they want to act, their activist politics to shine through in their work that we are all forced to fund. I won't actually go without saying that what the BBC do in the collection of their BBC licence fee is persecute pensioners, is persecute those, those under, of course, the threshold, but they persecute single mothers because they're more likely to be at home. They persecute students because they are, of course, more likely to be home. I think it's a disgrace that in the modern age, with a rich broadcasting landscape, plenty of choice that you can opt into choosing from, that we ought to have a coercive tax that says you've got to pay this telly tax for the BBC if you want to watch live telly. I mean, what age, what era are we living in here? We would sneer and scorn at the likes of Russia Today. Well, I see the BBC as absolutely no different. I think it is a propaganda tool, and it ain't propaganda for the British public. And you say they speak 34 languages. Well, maybe they should go do that and try and do that in the private market.
No. Look, Darren, if you look at the complaints against the BBC, just as many claim that there's a pro-Israel bias that claim that there's a pro-Gaza bias. Now, obviously, this instance is terrifying. But look, there's, on both sides of the aisle, many people want to pot shot at the BBC when actually they do a huge amount of public service broadcasting. So it's really a disgrace to say that all of this should be cast aside.
It should.
Because of this one instance.
OK, all right, I'm going to open it up to the panel now. Renee?
I mean, I've just been having a look at the BBC bias going back 30 years, and it's just so long I can't even go through it. You've got reporters on air shedding tears when Arafat died. You've got Adil Ray saying that Sikhs shouldn't be allowed to carry their ceremonial knife. You've got the 2008 reporting of the Mumbai bombings, where they refused to call them terrorists, they called them gunmen. And the list goes on. There's the Balaam report that was done in 2004 about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that they have never released, even under freedom of information. There is an ongoing court case today. This isn't just about this Hamas propaganda that they've been spreading since the start, when they couldn't actually say that they were terrorists. They say that they are, in some countries, prescribed as a terrorist organisation, including the UK. I mean, that's such a mouthful for their journalists to have to get out. But they don't want to say the words
and
terrorists.
They just simply refused to refer to Hamas as terrorists, kept defending, calling them militants over and over and over again, you know, irrespective of the fact that they are a prescribed terrorist organisation.
Same with the protests here in London, actually, in many cases, where there would be violence. If it was a football match with a similar-sized crowd, it would be violence erupt over a football match. But when the pro-Palestine, it's a small gathering with some minor incidents. You know, there is bias unpacked in their reporting. It's been called out many, many times by many different groups.
Yeah, there's an entitlement to the licence fee money with no sense of responsibility attached.
I remember the BLM protests when they were saying, describing the attacks on... Remember when police officers were knocked off their horses and the BBC were like, well, it was peaceful.
They were stroking the horse. But do you know what, Kai?
They don't even have to operate under the same rules as broadcasters like GB News. They have their own complaints procedures. Like, they're allowed to hold themselves accountable rather than being held to the same account as channels like this one.
But if you're right, let's say you're right, then if it's such a gem, make it subscription and it will stand on its own 2 feet, because everyone will
obviously GB News is the jewel in the crown.
The charter renewal in the coming 2 years will explore all those options. I think that all those options should be on the table. But right now, we have what we have. Let's actually get excited about what the BBC can provide.
But there's nothing.
So far,
I mean, I don't know
what it can provide.
Maybe you watch the BBC, but with maybe very, very few exceptions. On the rare occasion I watch the BBC, normally when it's in a hotel room or something. I mean, get excited about the programming? Are you kidding me? Have you seen any of it?
What they've done to... I used to love Doctor Who when I was younger, and what they've done to it is absolutely... In the last episode, they had a drag queen from RuPaul's Drag Race in it. You know, what next? A Palestinian transgender...
Probably.
Yeah, no,
because he wouldn't be allowed in Palestine.
That one wouldn't be able to be filmed in Gaza.
Well,
exactly.
All right, after the break, we'll be finding out which one of us has crowdfunded to send Kai to Gaza. And we'll find out what that woman is screaming about in Trigger Tantrums. Have a listen to this.
Oh! God! We will never recover!
Oh dear, it's Kai's mother. Asylum seekers are set to outnumber locals in an Essex village. We'll give you the details in Bunch of Five. You're with the Saturday Five, live on GB News.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
The recent showers over the Greek islands are fading away, so turning sunnier here, but we are looking at more wet weather across southern Spain and the Canaries. Through Sunday, there'll be plenty of showers over southern parts of Croatia, and there'll be some heavy showers on the west coast of Italy, Sardinia and Sicily, seeing some showers. Look at this wet weather over southern Spain and feeding down northerly winds, bringing a chill to Madeira, and plenty of showers over the Canaries. They'll continue well into next week. Bye for now.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Good morning. Are you all right?
I am all right. All the better for seeing you, my friend.
John, you've been through so much. We've just heard there about you losing your wife and losing your daughter. I'm so sorry to hear about both of those things. And despite all of that and everything you've been through, you continue to just give back. How can you do that? Just take something so negative and turn it into something so positive?
Well, Sheffield is the finest city in England. That's what I think about the Sheffield people and everybody. 250,000 I set out. I beat that. I got that. Just what's got in bucket. So I thought, well, set go ports a bit, are you? So we over 500. And we got that. And I thought, well, why not go say for $1 million? And we got $1 million. This is what I think about my people of Sheffield. It's just entitled my city. Sheffield, my city, that will always be home to me. No matter where I go or whatever sights I will see. Wherever I return, church bells will peal as I come home to the city of steel. A cathedral, cinemas, museums, Sheffield has such beautiful places. Home to a host of people of so many races. Living and working in perfect harmony. That's why Sheffield is the greatest place to be. Singing the praises of Sheffield, Sheffield, my Sheffield, as I go forth. For now we are the sporting city of the north. Wonderful people, so happy, so helpful, so kind. Sheffield, no better place you will find.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Five. Thank you very much for getting in contact at gbnews.com/your-say. Maruja says, what about Gary Lineker? Well done up against Kai. May I just say this in addition to the propaganda channel? Why have they allowed him to spout drivel for such a long time? I thought it was a disgrace that he signed that letter saying the BBC documentary should go ahead, even with the allegations of money.
It was a disgrace that many people signed that letter.
Well, true. But I expect it from these lefty lovies, you know? I really do.
And Miriam Margolis, of course. You'd expect her to be on it.
Oh, well, she's a bit dodgy, actually, yeah. Okie dokie. Get your questions in for Ask the Five. Thank you for your messages so far. And don't forget about this horrible poll. Vote for your favourite five.
I'm losing votes to Kai at the moment, I think.
Oh, dear.
It's very odd.
At gbnews.com.
What have you done?
It's because you're a Putin apologist.
I'm a Putin apologist.
Now, the vote for the poll closes at 8:30 p.m. And someone messaged me saying that actually, when they click on it, it says they voted for Kai. So I think he's got some kind of...
It's rigged. It's a rigged election.
He's got some, like, Hamas disinformation going on here or something. Right,
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Now it's time for this. All right, Emma Trimble.
Well, in the news this week, we've seen that in Wethersfield, the news that 800 migrants are going to be housed in a village that is populated by only 707 people. So let's take a look at this clip from Charlie Peters of GB News, who's been talking to local residents.
I think the reality is it's become our norm now, and it never was. It's so far away from the area that we knew, which was very quiet. I mean, I'm talking to you today. That would never have happened. It's nice, but I wish I wasn't. We've drawn a lot of attention. The people that come out, you don't know who they are. There are local neighbours to me that are concerned if they're walking their dog, they'll turn around and go home. And that's tough for people to deal with on a daily basis, isn't it?
I just think what's being forced on the people of Wethersfield is appalling, and not just them, but also the surrounding area. There are people who live in that area. Their house prices have just gone through the floor. Yeah. They can't move out. They've got lovely houses that they can't move somewhere else. People talking about law and order problems and stuff like that. I mean, it just seems to be wrong that you can force this on a small village where they'll effectively be outnumbered, and there's no sort of democratic accountability whatsoever.
Well, I mean, it does actually wipe out the white population as well. All of a sudden, you're talking about, it's a completely different makeup, quite literally.
But are we not seeing that? Did we not see that on GB News this week, that there are three major cities, I think it's London, Manchester and Birmingham, where white people are no longer in the majority?
Well, some would ask, they say, well, why are they doing this? And it's really bad for democracy, Emma, is it not? If people feel utterly powerless to what's been inflicted upon them.
Well, there was another report. I believe it was a GB News report interviewing a guy who. I think it was Ben Leo spoke to him, who's basically saying, there's not really anything that we can do about it. I think people feel that this is sort of being foisted on them, and it's not just, It's also the fact that it's so many people. They're going to be outnumbered. There's the facilities aren't there for them. They're in the middle of nowhere, really. What are they going to do except wander around fields in the local village?
And Labour did promise to end this hotel stuff. Let's not forget that was a manifesto pledge that this country voted on, which is now being rescinded. And once these people all get their citizenships, which most of them will, where are they going to go then?
Yeah, Claire says, the story is awful. The poor people of Wethersfield, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But the poor people of Britain, because this is happening in towns near you, I promise.
But this is the thing, people are going to be avoiding buying houses next to all RAF bases or military facilities because they'll worry it might happen there. So it's also actually taking money out of people's pockets. I think people forget the human impact on a smaller level, that, people are actually, having huge amounts cut off of the prices of their properties for this.
Renee?
OK, so I've got a story this week of a Ghanaian family who lived in London who actually convinced their 13-year-old child to go on holiday to visit a sick relative. And when they got there, they told him that actually he was now enrolled in a boarding school and he was staying there because they were saving him from gangs. So this is a child who was only 13. The teachers had already identified him as at risk of exploitation. He was turning up at school with expensive brand new clothing, which is how these gangs groom children. So when he got there, this 13-year-old contacted the British consulate, I'm shocked, and also children and families across borders and launched a legal case against his parents to take him back to London. And for once, one of our judges actually sided with the parents.
Wow.
And I thought that was fabulous, because what we need in this country is to be returning power to parents, not trying to take it away and make us a nanny state. So well done, that judge.
The other side of this, though, is that they thought it was safer for their child to be in Ghana because of gangs here in the UK. I feel like that might be the real story here.
Absolutely, it makes you think, doesn't it?
It does.
By the way, going back to the BBC, Dam's just written in, it says 125,000 for a didn't earn it DEI professional. I forgot to mention that.
Oh, that was today, wasn't it?
You're
Yeah.
keeping me right. Thank you very much. I have Romanian protests. Now, have a look at what these scenes from Romania. So they're saying that press reports say tens of thousands of people participated in Bucharest, and actually arguing that Georgescu, who was a pretty good, he was annulled, is the word I'm looking for, in that most recent election. And the people on the streets there are demanding that they have another go, but they can't, because actually he's been precluded from the ballot. Now, I would argue that, have we not seen, do people read history? Have we not seen that every time you try and exclude someone from the ballot box that the public want to vote for, that it doesn't have the desired effect? Right? They're not voting for you and your rotten uni party because you keep doing the same thing over and over again.
They haven't quite got that memo yet, because they're still trying. In Germany, they tried to ban the AfD, but now they're just going to get together with all the lefties and just keep them out of power. They did it in France, and they've just got a government that doesn't function in France anymore as a result.
And this is across the EU as well. In Hungary, there's been alleged interference from the European Union there too. And, you know, they just want to get people in power that are going to fall into line, especially in these smaller countries. I mean, the EU is its own little superpower, so it puts pressure on its little vassal states to fall into line. Yeah, well, they try to get people to fall in line, and I think it's quite
It's a bullying cartel.
And they were trying to suggest that JD Vance wasn't correct in calling that out.
Yeah.
But he was right to say to you have to trust your electorate, otherwise it's. Kai doesn't agree. Kai doesn't agree.
Election rerun on May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. Alex, what have you got?
Yes, well, the self-exiled Prince of Montecito, Prince Harry, yes, he's at it again. We thought he wanted privacy, but no, he's back on stage, everybody. He made a surprise appearance at some event in LA, and during that, he took a very subtle swipe at Elon Musk and Donald Trump. He said there's a sickness in leadership across sectors, from politics to tech, that can have a detrimental impact on millions, if not billions of people when service to others is sacrificed for personal gain. Personal gain, I wonder who that reminds me of. Anyway.
Do you remember that? Don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Quite, yeah.
All right, Kai, what have you got?
Well, as we all know, the Broccoli dynasty, who launched the Bond films in 1962, have kept an iron grip on that film franchise for a long time, but no more. Amazon has taken over, and that sparked a deluge of predictions about Bond's demise. Jeremy Clarkson has gone against the tide, however, coming out swinging for Amazon. He said it took a man with petrol in his veins out of a fire-spitting Lamborghini and turned him into a farmer. After that, anything is possible, frankly. Well, might he have a skin in the game? What do we all think? Bond?
Jeremy Clarkson as James Bond?
I would watch that.
That would be great.
I haven't seen any Bond films, but I would watch that.
That would be a very good Bond film.
OK, on that bombshell, still to come tonight, my friends. What is this woman screaming about?
Oh! God! We will never recover!
She's heard the news that Jeremy Clarkson is the next Bond. Trigger Tantrums is next. You're with the Saturday 5. We're live on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead to the next few days, it remains largely dry across the south, but further north we will continue to see some further rain from time to time. We still have this weak weather front across the country at the moment, separating the country in two. Still some rain left on it as we move through the course of this evening across northern England, but either side plenty of clear skies. Could see some mist and fog return across parts of East Anglia, southeastern parts of England too, and then later on in the night we could just see some mist and fog also for Northern Ireland and southern Scotland. Under the clearest skies, another cold night, especially in the south, a widespread frost here, temperatures easily falling below freezing. So we start Sunday morning off on a fairly bright note across eastern Scotland, but cloud already beginning to spill back in across northwestern Scotland with an increase in wind here too. Southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, murky start in places with some mist and fog, but that should gradually lift as the day goes on. And for much of England and Wales, a fairly sunny start, and that really is going to continue as we go through the course of the day. It's here where we see the lion's share of the sunshine. Northern England, a little bit more limited with sunshine, with a mix of cloud and sunshine, but really the cloudiest skies will be for parts of Scotland, especially later on as this band of rain just approaches in from the Atlantic. Temperatures on Sunday very similar to what we saw on Saturday, so highs reaching around 10 to 11 degrees. So in the sunshine, I think feeling pleasant enough for the time of year. A look ahead to Monday, another cold, frosty start in the south, but once again, largely sunny skies here. A band of rain just slowly working its way southeastwards, but weakening as it does so. So by the time it gets to England, very little rainfall left on it, and then behind it we'll see further showers. And really very little changes middle of the week, largely settled in the south, but further rainfall at times across the north.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Headliners on GB News, 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Coming up from 8 p.m, it's Ask the 5. Get your questions in, gbnews.com/your say. Marie's written in and she says, Darren, can you please ask Alex, where does he have his eyebrows done? They're very fluffy.
Well, people like my eyebrows. Well, there you go. I don't get them done, so I just have to...
What a liar.
It's a lovely thing to say.
You lie like a rug, Alex.
Renee will Renee saw you in Superdrug getting touched up.
Go to one of those places in the middle of the shopping centre.
All right. And don't forget to vote for your favourite 5 at gbnews.com/poll.
We've all
gone back to zero.
We've gone back to
Reset
zero.
the vote. Renee was rigging it.
Yeah. Fluffy Brows is in the lead. The vote will close at 8:30 p.m.
Fluffy Brows.
All right, folks, it's time for Triggered Tantrums. This week's best in huffing, puffing and blowing absolutely nothing down. If you thought toddlers were dramatic, just wait till you see this lot. Emma.
Right, so there was this whole debate following Suella Braverman putting out this article where she said that she doesn't identify as English, she identifies as British Indian. And Owen Jones, who for years now has been going on about self-ID and how people can identify as whatever they like, apparently don't think Suella Braverman's allowed to identify as an Indian. She has to identify as English, apparently. And J.K. Rowling also responded with a tweet. I think we might have that there. So it's kicked off this whole debate about whether or not you can self-ID as an Indian.
Hypocrisy,
there we are.
Isn't it? It's just the usual leftist hypocrisy, isn't it? We always see from them. As soon as you disagree with their views change.
Yeah,
yep.
It's quite astonishing.
OK, so mine is Sheryl Crow, you know, that icon in America who has decided that she's going to show how much she detests Elon Musk, and he's going to really be worried about this by selling her Tesla. And she waves it bye-bye. Here it is. Oh, maybe it's not.
We've not got that clip.
We've not got that clip. OK, well, then I can't really do that.
No.
Shall I hand over to Alex?
Picture it in your mind's eye.
It's in my mind.
She waves it off. She waves it off.
And she's going to give the money from selling it to NPR because they're under attack as well. Like Elon Musk cares.
It's very silly, isn't it? It's just petulant. These people are so entitled.
So entitled.
At first, I thought you said Cheryl Cole. And I thought, what's she doing?
That is what I heard too, and I believe that's who you were talking about.
My enunciation is clearly poor.
I mean, I think this video is probably going to speak for itself. So why don't we just watch it and have a little talk about it afterwards?
You have ruined the United States! You've ruined us! We will not recover! Oh! God! We will never recover because of your stupidity! Stupidity!
Ma'am, I hope you have a great day again.
It's just the scream.
Surely that can't be real.
Well, do you know what? Even if it's not real, I mean, I think it's real. From things sources I've looked at, it seems to be real. But that's the problem: is that you cannot distinguish whether these people are real and these things are real because they are so similar.
And what
to
had
all those other meltdowns.
What had upset her so much?
I think because he's wearing a MAGA hat.
Make America
that was it.
Yeah, Make America great again.
Was he a veteran?
Yeah. He was a veteran. Yeah.
Well, she should be grateful that with her, you know, while she's clearly sat on a bottom all too often, that he was out fighting for the country.
And I see the reason why people are saying it's not a skit is because it's very disrespectful in America to dress up as a veteran. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of people are saying it's definitely not a skit.
By the way, we've had an email from someone called Carl saying, I voted for Alex. You are rigging the election, aren't you?
I was going to rig the election.
How dare you?
What are you doing under the desk?
All right. OK. Now, my pen just fired at me there. That was very exciting.
It's all kicking off.
No, don't go anywhere because it's going to get even more mad. Because coming up, it's the Saturday 5 Extra, where we're all going to let our hair down, have a bit of alcohol. Renee's going to shake a booty. Anything can happen. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, she's doing it for the poll.
Anything.
Get yourself ready. We'll be back in just a moment. Right, let's move. Ladies first.
Ladies first.
Ladies.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead to the next few days, it remains largely dry across the south, but further north we will continue to see some further rain from time to time. We still have this weak weather front across the country at the moment, separating the country in two. Still some rain left on it as we move through the course of this evening across northern England, but either side plenty of clear skies. Could see some mist and fog return across parts of East Anglia, southeastern parts of England too, and then later on in the night we could just see some mist and fog also for Northern Ireland and southern Scotland. Under the clearer skies, another cold night, especially in the south, a widespread frost here, temperatures easily falling below freezing. So we start Sunday morning off on a fairly bright note across eastern Scotland, but cloud already beginning to spill back in across northwestern Scotland with an increase in wind here too. Southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, murky start in places with some mist and fog, but that should gradually lift as the day goes on. And for much of England and Wales, a fairly sunny start, and that really is going to continue as we go through the course of the day. It's here where we see the lion's share of the sunshine. Northern England, a little bit more limited with sunshine, with a mix of cloud and sunshine, but really the cloudiest skies will be for parts of Scotland, especially later on as this band of rain just approaches in from the Atlantic. Temperatures on Sunday very similar to what we saw on Saturday, so highs reaching around 10 to 11 degrees. So in the sunshine, I think feeling pleasant enough for the time of year. A look ahead to Monday, another cold, frosty start in the south, but once again, largely sunny skies here. A band of rain just slowly working its way southeastwards, but weakening as it does so. So by the time it gets to England, very little rainfall left on it, and then behind it we'll see further showers. And really very little changes middle of the week, largely settled in the south, but further rainfall at times across the north.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could be one of 2 big winners in our latest giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
I know. So, Chef Theo Michaels joins us in the studio to talk about this. We know we've got a problem with food waste in this country, Theo, but this idea that there's a younger generation who are just reading the back of a packet and going, well, that must have gone off then, throwing it in the bin. Why do they do that when maybe we wouldn't?
Do you know what? I think we live in an increasingly sanitised, bubble-wrapped world, right, where we've become detached from our food, we've become detached from using a bit of common sense. And so I think there's a generation that are doing exactly this. They're looking at a best before date to start with, which actually is meaningless. Best before date is me turning around to you two going, the fish should be at its prime on Tuesday, right? Yeah. But that's not the use by date. The use by date could be a week later. You know, we say the sniff test. That's what we should be doing. So I've had it before. I had a great experience once. I walked into a supermarket and I saw an Italian guy I know, and he was jumping around with so much excitement as he was collecting handfuls of Parmesan cheese that they said, oh, it was going out of date. And he was laughing, so he was going, we aged this stuff for years. Yes. It doesn't go out of date. Yeah. So he was buying it by the truckload. And I think the key thing is there is this sort of sniff test that people talk about, but it's absolutely right. It's ingrained in us. It's instinctive that if we smell something that's off, it's like giving someone a dose of salts.
I'm also wondering, with these dates on these packaging, did it actually do a favour to the supermarkets because it meant that you're throwing them away and buying less?
100%.
Buying more.
The use by dates only came out in the 70s, right? And that was done by one particular supermarket. And for me, I can't help be cynical about it, Bevan.
Who was it?
Marks and Spencer's.
Was it?
Marks and Spencer's in the 70s.
All followed suit.
And yet...
They all followed suit.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5 Extra. Dr. Renee's just done a squat for us all. She's getting those polling numbers up. She said, I'll do anything, Darren. I'm Darren Grimes, and I'm alongside Emma Trimble, who's just downed a pint, Dr. Renee, Alex Armstrong, who hasn't downed a pint, and Kai Wilshaw, who probably will down a pint. Plenty more to come tonight. We'll be talking to the columnist... Oh, I forgot about this. I'm very excited about this. Brendan O'Neill is going to be joining us, of course, from Spiked, about the Gaza documentary by the BBC, and not related, but are beavers going to be our ultimate saviour to climate change? I learn something new every day, I tell you. It's 8 p.m, and this is the Saturday 5. I have no idea. Beaver mad, this channel. Still to come, we'll bring you our highlights in our High Five. Then we'll be answering your questions in Ask the Five. Send them through to gbnews.com/your say. And don't forget to vote for me in our poll.
I'm winning.
For your favourite 5.
Do I win by default?
Again, we're all on 0%. The vote will close at 8 p.m.
It's like a Romanian election.
I said to them, if I can't win, no one can win. But first of all, it's your Saturday night news with Sophie Reaper.
Thank you, Darren. The time is just after 8 o'clock and these are your latest headlines. Earlier on today, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy arrived at Downing Street for a meeting with Sir Keir Starmer. Just a warning, the following footage contains some flashing images. The British PM was there to greet President Zelenskyy as the pair shook hands outside Number 10 before entering to begin their bilateral meeting. The Ukrainian president is in the UK ahead of a major defence summit in London tomorrow. Sir Keir and his Ukrainian counterpart sat down in Downing Street, where both men expressed their thanks for the British public's support of Ukraine and their desire to achieve peace.
Absolute determination to stand with you, unwavering determination, and to achieve what we both want to achieve, which is a lasting peace for Ukraine based on sovereignty and security for Ukraine. So important for Ukraine, so important for Europe and so important for the United Kingdom.
We are happy and we count on your support and really, we're really happy that we have such partners and such friends.
Meanwhile, Volodymyr Zelensky's arrival in the UK follows his brief meeting in the White House yesterday, in which talks with Donald Trump descended into a row. The Ukrainian president travelled to Washington, D.C. as he attempted to secure a ceasefire agreement with Russia and a possible mineral deal with the US. However, the visit ended prematurely, with the signing of an agreement and a joint press conference cancelled following the clash. And tonight is the 45th annual Brit Awards ceremony, with artists and other celebrities now starting to arrive at the O2 Arena for the event. Nominated artists this year include Sabrina Carpenter, former Little Mix star Jade Thirlwall, Dua Lipa and even the Beatles. But it's Charlie XCX who's expected to do particularly well this year, having been nominated in 5 categories and already been named as the Songwriter of the Year. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in the next hour, but now it's back to Darren and your Saturday 5.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much to Lady Reaper there. Now, I'm drinking red wine, my friends, so if my teeth look like they're, you know...
He's had one
dodgy,
sip and he's gone already.
I know, gone already. If they look dodgy, that's why. Right, our first question in this week's Ask the Five, my friends, is a question from Addick. Right, OK, well, we'll get to that question in a moment. Have we got Susan?
Ladies should always go first.
Oh, right, OK. Well, we'll get to Ask the Five in just a moment. Anyway, Emma Webb, tell us about your fondness for pints.
Well, you see, I just really wanted to look like a bloke, show off my coat. No, you can see the bottom of the boots. They look really mucky on the camera.
You want to be careful saying that you really want to be a bloke these days, because they'll
yes, that's
do
true.
horrible things to you.
I mean, I've already been once today.
Some NHS service might come for me, take me away in a white van.
She's going to kick you off the sofa.
No, I do like a beer. I do like a pint, but I did just like to, you know, sometimes subvert expectations.
Yes.
I like that. And there was no whiskey available.
She succeeded. I expected her to be a wine girl.
Yeah.
That seems insulting somehow.
Misogyny,
a future wine aunt. You seem like an alcoholic, dear.
I just read, right, that Rachel Reeves has given billions to Ukraine. She's saying it's come from frozen Russian assets. What do you all think of that?
Well, initially, it wound me up because we've just announced we're going to be funding and supporting Ukraine for the next 100 years. It's $3 billion a year for as long as it takes. So I saw a lot of those frozen assets as a way to pay us back and at least not have that same deal that America's making where we take minerals and land from Ukraine, because that's the alternative. But it seems to me now like everyone's going to need a piece of Ukraine in order to get some sort of compensation, which I don't like for Ukraine. The Russian assets total billions, which we should use to pay off that debt.
This is the trade-off, right? There's $300 billion of Russian assets frozen across Europe. Now, it's about damn time that we take that money away rather than spend out of...
Well, we should
spend
it on ourselves.
Surely, it is a trade-off.
But that's what I'm saying.
Taking out of day-to-day spending.
I think you've misinterpreted what I've said. I've said the reality is that should pay for what we're giving to to Ukraine.
Right. Yeah, rather their money than ours.
We're going to very magically
back to them.
We're going to very magically go to our Ask the Five now, and our question comes from Adam.
Hello, panel. I would like to ask you tonight: is Britain will ever get a leader like Trump?
Will Britain ever have a leader like Trump?
I hope not.
We can only hope.
I hope so. We need strong leaders. Look, this country is weak. We've just gone off to a begging bowl across Europe. Starmer's had to completely change his whole persona and thoughts around Trump just to appease America. It's embarrassing. We need a strong leader. We need someone like Nigel Farage in Parliament.
A strong British leader wouldn't look, and I don't mean physically, wouldn't look like Trump. He would be a strong British leader. Exactly. That's what we need. We need
Margaret
somebody
Thatcher of the day.
No, actually, I don't.
I think so?
I actually think that we're, particularly the Conservatives, so held up on trying to replicate Margaret Thatcher in every generation. I think what we need is somebody, you know, who is of their own stature. And I think. I mean, yes, Nigel Farage.
I think he'd be fantastic, wouldn't he? He says it as it is. I mean, there's lots of great talent in the form, but I know Pi's going to disagree. I would have the strong man, the irony Chancellor, Rachel Reeves.
I think there are some things you can say about Nigel, but he is definitely, in my opinion, the best chance we've got as a nation.
And he's a man of his word as well. He stands by what he says. We don't see that with this Labour government. They've U-turned on everything. Lammy's had to do a complete 180 on his views on Trump, which he called, you know, KKK sympathiser and all this stuff before. Now he's best friends.
You would agree with those sentiments?
That is utter tosh. Nigel Farage has a history, a political history of U-turning and flip-flopping. So to
give me one example.
Characterise
Nigel
Farage different to Keir Starmer and Lammy.
Can we have an example?
They are looking to govern. Look. Nigel Farage has never governed. He's never had the opportunity to govern in his life.
When you ask the left to give you an example, they can never find one.
Someone has never governed until they've governed anyway. That's the case of every leader. But what we need is a good, strong British leader who, you know, is willing to cut through all of the...
What do you mean by that? What do you all mean by that? A strong British leader.
Someone who's able to show some leadership and isn't completely mediocre.
Somebody who doesn't have to go to the begging bowl with the EU, who's willing to...
Someone who isn't at the beck of the
not British?
We used to be the most powerful country in the world 18 years ago. Look how far we've fallen. We're going to Macron with a begging bowl.
Can I explain what I mean?
France and the UK have been leading.
I want to explain what I mean. So, no, not Keir Starmer, because he's not a strong leader. He is obviously a British leader. When I say British, I mean Trump is a very American character. If we produced something like Trump here in the UK, it would be like a weird aberration, right? It's good for America. What's good for America is not necessarily what's good for us. But what I mean is we need a good, strong leader here.
All right.
Not a replication of Trump or a replication of Thatcher, somebody who is of stature and not mediocre in their own right.
Now, our next question is from Susan.
Hello, my question for the panel tonight is this. As our military is so depleted, should we take a leaf out of Germany's book and start actively conscripting from the pool of young men 18 to 30-year-olds on benefits and start looking at the young men who are languishing in the hotels?
Oh.
Yeah, so...
I think divide that into two parts.
Yeah.
OK, so
the first part of the question then, Susan says young men who are on benefits.
Yes.
Should we conscript them into the armed forces?
So the armed forces don't want them, by the way, because they want people that are motivated to join the army and want to be there. But having said that, it may well focus their mind on getting up and being economically active, even if it's not in the army. So I don't think it's a bad idea. In terms of the young men in hotels, no, absolutely not. They're from a different culture. We don't know where their loyalties lie, and I don't think we want them in our army until they've actually proven them to be
They're also
who
not
they are.
citizens. They're a terrible idea.
I wouldn't want them in the army, definitely.
No.
I think that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. It's an interesting question, though.
Yeah.
But what about the broader argument over conscription?
Well, do you know what? I was just... this whole debate harkens back to Rishi Sunak's pledge in the election to have some sort of national citizens... you know, where you go off and you work for the NHS or you do...
Which wasn't a bad idea.
Which I actually think is a fantastic idea. It's a really good... This is the similar sort of thing. Conscription is a similar thing. And I think every young person, they do it in so many countries, Norway, Israel, so many countries, it adds great benefit. Those people love their country and they fight for it. Even if they disagree with the politicians at the time, they see the value in the everyday, and that is exactly
So
what
would it be like Israel, where they go like age 18 or something, like 18 to 20?
That moment between college and university, you're too young. I didn't appreciate university. If I went back now, I'd love it.
The difference is, though, Alex, that there are millions of young people in this country who do not like Britain at all.
True.
In Israel, you do not have that problem.
But that's what I mean. Look at the root causes. They have no reason to want to love. They've lost authority at schools. Parents have lost authority at home, and there's no reason. They don't ever do any service for the country.
However, it might create a certain impetus in the education system to not constantly denigrate the country if people are, because in the past it was a clear and present danger. We've been very lucky, and so we've developed all these luxury beliefs. But in the past, it was a very clear thing that you need to be able and willing to defend your country if it comes to it. And so they didn't have the luxury of constantly denigrating the culture and making people hate their own home and be unwilling to fight for it.
I agree. Yeah,
my grandfather, in his national service, served in the Korean War, and I can't imagine many young people being all that happy about, fighting in Ukraine.
Well, they're around the same age that these conscripts would be. My grandfather was a Japanese prisoner of war.
The problem is when you don't teach people to love their country from the moment they go into school, then by the time they come out at the other end, they will have no impetus to defend that country when under threat.
True. And I will say also, just very briefly, there's a lot of army veterans who would be fantastic in these sorts of roles, and the government could hire them. It would be a great initiative for the veterans of our mentors, for young people, great for our country.
Unfortunately, Britain's full of mini Kais. Right, our next question is in from Lee.
Hello, Lee here from Bedford. Five Guys has taken bacon and alcohol off the menu at some of its stores, like in Birmingham, to be halal friendly. Is this a good business move to fit the local area, or does it mess up with what the brand is all about?
I see this as a total capitulation, once again, on bended knee, and it's for certain groups. It would never happen any other way around. It can't be a good commercial decision.
I think it is a commercial decision because I think I think it is a commercial decision, and I'm not going to criticise any business for that. However, I do worry about the slow creep of halal into all of our institutions. You don't eat a meal in the NHS now when you're in hospital that is not halal, and you don't even know.
What if you have a moral objection to
Well,
halal?
Exactly.
Are you allowed to? Will that be under the
consumer
new
choice?
Islamophobia?
Well, I think the thing is
definition?
that if you have certain communities that are much more organised, like for example, if you had people who had moral objections to halal, you'd have to really come together and somehow voice that opinion. And what we have now is a kind of market equivalent of a heckler's veto, that whoever shouts the loudest gets what they want, even if that means it's at the expense of what the majority actually want.
Well, Sorry, just on the point of majorities and things like that, in some of these locations, there's one in here in London, that Muslims are not actually the majority of the area.
Yeah.
So this is what baffles me. So we say it's a commercial decision, but actually when you look at the demographics of those locations, Muslims are not in the majority.
But I think that's because of exactly what Emma has just said.
I agree.
Because across the country, they've decided that it's easier to do it across the chains, and the indigenous population, if not Muslim, won't complain anyway.
Exactly.
Well, I will.
We just bring our own bacon and put it in.
Right, Kai, will you be dunking a bit of halal meat?
No, I won't. And look, this is one branch, clearly misguided, clearly mistaken.
It's five branches, actually.
Five. Clearly a stupid decision. I don't think it needs to go on.
So what do you think about the NHS only serving halal meat?
Also stupid.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I agree.
We agree.
We can have common sense discussions.
Right.
Somebody check his temperature.
Our next question is from Judy.
Hi, panel. So before I start, got to get the Angel of the North in for Darren. My question for you today is, what do you feel about the government's ability to tell me and you when you can access your private pension? Now, I've been paying into a private pension since I was 18 years old, thinking I was going to be able to access that at 55. I've now been told that I can't access that until 57. Now, when I get to 57, will that be 60? When I get to 60, will it be 62? At what point do the government get to stop telling us when and how we can access our own hard-earned money? I've been paying into that pension pot as my retirement fund because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get a state pension by the time I get to that age, whatever that might be. So what's your opinion on the government being able to tell me when I can access my private pension?
Gosh, Julie's good, isn't she?
Julie's very good. I think this is really interesting. I'll tell you why. I think Julie's absolutely right. A private pension, the government shouldn't be changing the rules for. You've paid in for it, you should be able to take it out when you thought you were going to be able to take it out. But it's also an idiotic decision by the government because it will be high enough, a private pension usually, to mean that they get taxed from it.
Yes.
You know, pensions are taxable. So the sooner somebody takes it, the quicker they get the tax.
The reality is, it's not private. Right? If the government dictates the rules, it is not private. It's another... and I'll be honest, I have not paid into pensions very often because I don't believe that my pension is safe by the time I get to an old
You'll be sorry when you get to my age.
Yeah, but the reality is that we won't get pensions by the time we're 85, 90.
Won't be able to.
You know, it'll be a luxury to enjoy your pension at our age. We'll probably be 80 before we can touch it.
What would you say then to the argument that the government would make, I assume, which would be along the lines of, well, we need to ensure that people have something when they retire?
Well, they only want you to pay into pensions so they can constantly raid it and up the ages so they can take that money for themselves. And if you die without taking that pension, guess what? It goes back to them.
Never used to. That's a recent
thing. But like Alex said, that means it's not a private pension anyway. So I think this is all part of the government's general attitude of creep into things that it has no authority over. It should have absolutely no authority over a private pension. What gives them the authority to be able to interfere with it in that way?
Yeah, as I say, we're never going to be able to retire, so this is academic. But Kai, even you surely must be like, get your mitts off my private pension.
Yeah, absolutely. Pensions have been just a complete mess of policy the last few years. Clearly there's issues to deal with. One of the great things that the Labour government has now done is make it easier for pension funds to be investing more of their money
easier for pensioners to die, to be honest.
Don't be silly.
Stop confusing him with Benjamin Butterworth.
But the government has made it easier for pension funds to invest in higher growth assets. That's good. That's important. Now, obviously, there needs to be other reform. And yes, I agree. I haven't been paying that much into my pension either because
you know you're not going to get it.
Who knows when we're going to get it?
Yeah.
That's because of the climate crisis.
Well, also ISAs are
not because of anything else.
I don't know about that. But Rachel is also looking at ISAs, isn't she? She's also looking into.
She's looking at ISIS.
ISAs, ISAs, cash ISAs, where they're thinking about but the thing.
Yes, but that's a really bizarre thing to do because they've encouraged people to save in a tax-free way, and whether you want to be a bit risky with it and put it into shares, or whether you want to keep it in your ISA in cash should be your business again, and they have no business. So I had some money in a cash ISA, and I read this. So you know what I did? I moved it into a government gilt. They can pay me.
There you go.
You know, I was looking at my pension here, and it said that I was in a carbon neutral fund, and I moved it straight out.
I bet you they default you into these carbon things just to raise the prices.
Right, my friends, next up we're going to be joined by the brilliant Brendan O'Neill from Spiked, who'll discuss the BBC's Totally Shameless Gaza documentary. That's coming up after this.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Could Doctor Who be for the chop after more than 60 years? Well, here to explain why there's a lot of rumour, a buzz about this story is the GB News entertainment editor, Alex Davies. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
What on earth is going on?
Well, this has all sort of come around because reports have emerged that the lead actor, Ncuti Gatwa, is planning on leaving. He's only been there for 2 years, but apparently he's already eyeing up the exit door. He wants to reportedly set up a new life in LA. He's got countless Hollywood opportunities lined up for him, according to reports. And the reports are also suggesting his team aren't too fond of some of the woke storylines that have emerged in the last few years. The series has come under fire a number of times. There's been several storylines that have been criticised for pushing certain narratives. They cast a black actor as Isaac Newton, for one. There are other examples, including misgendering aliens.
Do aliens have gender?
Well, you'd be surprised, apparently. There's one called a meep that David Tennant, who briefly reprised his role before Sheety, he got the meep, their gender, wrong and was pulled up about it by a trans character.
Just very forced, it seems. Very forced. Oh, we need to get in the gender nouns and the pronouns. But there was also a bit of heat just for having a female doctor, wasn't there? Jodie Whittaker.
There was, but I feel like that's always going to get heat. When you take a fictional character, a fictional institution, which has been white men predominantly, and you put something that goes against that, you're going to get attention. This one in particular, like I say, with these sort of storylines, has garnered more attention than most.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Saturday 5 Extra. Now it's time for High Five, where we discuss our favourite moments from the past week. I nearly said Emma Webb. Emma Trimble is beaver mad this week, and she says her beaver are going to save the planet.
I didn't quite say that. I think what you'll find is that I just pointed out that DEFRA have announced that wild beavers are back, and I thought I would raise beavers because I've heard on the grapevine that Renee likes beavers. I don't know. This is a Saturday 5 in joke.
I'm just going to have a drink and watch this. This is great
This
TV.
is a Saturday 5 in joke that I am only peripherally aware of.
We do like beavers.
Grumpy Grandad messages saying he likes a beaver. I said, I bet you do.
Tell Grumpy Grandad that the wild beavers are back in the UK, according to DEFRA.
Right.
So there we are. That's my high
What
five.
are they doing, actually, these beavers?
We're working on HS2.
Ah, that would make sense.
OK, we've got this.
I'm delighted to announce that the government's new approach to beaver reintroduction and management in England will enable the release of beavers into the wild.
Beavers create habitats that store, slow and filter water. There are good reasons why people call them ecosystems engineers. They can restore natural processes that help make our rivers and wetlands healthier and more resilient to climate change.
The Labour government talking about having their beavers in the wetlands.
Brilliant news.
Yeah, brilliant news. She, by the way, was very dodgy on Brexit, and she was booted out at the last election, but she's back in now.
With the beavers.
Mary Cray is her name.
See, maybe our Trump would be a beaver.
Well, I thought
they're very
Mary
industrious creatures, you know.
Well, all right. Renee, you've got an exciting book announcement.
I have. So I'm actually using this week's opportunity to, first of all, congratulate my son, Callum, who got his own book deal for a book he's written over the last few years while he's been travelling on the F1 circuit. It's called Life in the Pit Lane. It launched this week. It's been the #1 bestseller on Amazon in all of the relevant things. I went into Daunt Books today and demanded to know where it was, and they told me it's in reprint already.
Wow.
So this is Callum. This is his book, and he sent me a beautiful little message in the front of my book. I don't know if we've got that, which says, I can't read that. Thank you for helping me to discover what I love and everything else along the way.
How did you help him discover his love for being in the pit lane?
So I took him to Silverstone to a race with Margaret McDonough, who sadly has died now, who was a friend of mine. We were in hospitality there, and he said as we walked down that pit lane and he saw them doing the pit stops, he knew that was what he wanted to do, and up until that point he hadn't. And so I want to say well done, Callum, and you can buy your copy now on Amazon and all good book sales, and I'm just really proud. It's my proud mama moment.
It is. It is.
Cheers to Callum.
Quite amazing.
Yeah, it's lovely.
And that's so much better than Beavers.
And he wrote it himself. He didn't have it ghosted.
And you know I'm a big F1 fan. This has been across all the F1 Twitters, Instagram accounts. It really is the talk of the town. And honestly, congratulations.
Kai wants a signed copy.
Yeah, Kai wants a signed copy.
Callum, Kai wants a signed copy.
OK, right. Now, next then, gene therapy. Well, this is a form of treatment that's enabled sight improvements for blind infants. And it's through pioneering work by the University College of London's Institute of, how the hell do I say that word?
Ophthalmology.
Thank you. And Moorfields Eye Hospital. It's phenomenal stuff, really.
Wow.
And what they've been able to do for these kids totally changed and transformed their lives.
So what was really interesting about this is the first 5 children that they did this on, they only did one eye because they didn't, if it went wrong, they didn't want it to go wrong in both eyes. And in the eye that they did it in over a few years, they really got back good vision, whereas they'd only been able to see dark and light. And the other eye went blind. Now, that's fine. They had sight. And obviously all science works like that. So it really is a miracle therapy. It really is.
Incredible.
And that is their lives transformed,
yes.
right?
Yeah. And, you know, children that are blind actually have big cognitive and learning difficulties because sight is such an important part of learning.
Of course.
Alex?
What have I got for you? Yeah, do you like IKEA? Does anyone like it? Have anyone got any IKEA furniture? I really admit it.
I like the meatballs. I love IKEA.
I think IKEA is a gift, but which cameraman? Camera 3? Anyway, I'll figure it out. IKEA is the place to shop if you want your furniture to be worth something in the future. So apparently there's some chairs that are going, and this is a bit of a small quote
1970s.
If you've got something from the 1970s IKEA, there's a chair that's going for £14,000.
So what you're saying is I should ignore my family and keep all of my IKEA furniture.
It's becoming vintage.
Don't chuck out the
Don't throw anything away.
So, you know, if you like to shop at IKEA or you enjoy a little bargain here and there, you never know, it might actually quadruple your money.
We're bringing IKEA back from the 1970s and the Beaver.
Yeah, we could have thought maybe we could get them in the factory.
And the economy.
Well,
I do think that IKEA for young people setting up home has transformed what they could do. Whereas when I set up home, you had to have a hand-me-down from here and a hand-me-down from there. But now you can go to IKEA and not spend much money.
You had to ask help from a Beaver.
With the caveat that other large Swedish retailers are available.
Yes,
my favourite chair is from IKEA, and no other chair will ever supplant it. And I bought it in, you know, when you move into your first flat. Exactly. And I love that yellow chair. I love it.
All right, Kai?
Don't let the beavers at the chair. Mine
Unfortunately, the mice have already been in it, but...
Doctor Who is going to have what was quoted a ridiculous Eurovision-themed programme. Now, what campier, better way to celebrate Britishness?
You're serious, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I really am. What a fantastic
Terrifying.
episode that's going to be with Ncuti Gatwa. I mean, really, I'm thrilled, looking forward to it.
Are you being serious? It's satire.
Yeah.
You're like a comedy skit in human form.
It sounds so sarcastic that I can't take it seriously.
I don't believe
I mean, this is why it's probably going to get
How
cancelled.
can you take offence when Canada and Israel and all those people are involved?
All right, well...
I don't watch Eurovision. I just think it's a joke.
Well, I do watch Eurovision, but what the hell has it got to do with Doctor Who?
Exactly.
Yeah. I think it's a great...
Don't forget, Doctor Who have gone down the pronouns route, haven't they? So
well, that's why they're doing it.
Yeah.
And they've alienated loads of viewers. Their vote shares, viewing figure share, rather, is dropping faster than Kai's polling share.
Yeah, but they do have a non-binary alien.
He's up.
I'm not sure about that.
Oh, you're on the up, are you? Right, next up, my friends, we'll be revealing your favourite 5, and I'll be joined by the brilliant Brendan O'Neill, who'll discuss the BBC's shameful Gaza documentary. That's next.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The recent showers over the Greek islands are fading away, so turning sunnier here, but we are looking at more wet weather across southern Spain and the Canaries. Through Sunday, there'll be plenty of showers over southern parts of Croatia, and there'll be some heavy showers on the west coast of Italy, Sardinia and Sicily, seeing some showers. Look at this wet weather over southern Spain and feeding down northerly winds, bringing a chill to Madeira, and plenty of showers over the Canaries. They'll continue well into next week. Bye for now.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Apparently in 1991, I took out an insurance on my computer, which I have no recollection of at all. But recently, I've had a foreign voice ring me and say, unless I pay the £1,000 immediately, they'll take it out of my bank account.
They wouldn't have access to your bank account.
No, they have no access to my bank account. And what you should do, to begin with, you feel frightened. And you think, my God, £1,000 coming up, what do I do? And then Neil, my partner, said, just ignore it. And that's what you've got to do. But they are persistent.
So threatening as well.
And we changed we changed the number and everything. And still, they managed to get through to you. And we told the bank not to accept any £1,000 checks, something like that. But it is awful. But I say to your viewers and listeners, please, please ignore these phone calls.
Yes.
Even if at the end of the day it's true and they do come and collect £1,000 legally, don't do anything about it. Just ignore it.
Yeah. I think there's an organisation you can phone which is anti-scammer.
Is there?
They can do a lot of this stuff for you. I'm no help to you because I don't know what it is.
Well, I might look into that because it is worrying, you know, to begin with, and then they are so persistent.
Yeah.
That is the thing.
My mum had a similar thing the other day, and this is a good tip to remember. And her bank rang her up and said it was her bank, and they needed to get into her account immediately because someone had hacked her account and they were taking her money out. So it's automatically the panic.
Yeah.
You're losing money. Yeah. And they said, just share the one-time password that's about to come to your phone. And at that point, she went, no, you should never share your one-time password.
No.
If anybody asks you to do that, it's a scam.
No,
phone
exactly.
down. So just a good one to remember.
Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Oh my God. Welcome back to the Saturday 5 Extra. Emma Webb is currently downing her second cup. She's just been saying absolutely horrendous things about that Beaver college. And Dr. Renee, you know, the things she says, she's like you're like Popeye. Now, we're joined by the brilliant columnist from Spiked, Brendan O'Neill, to talk about beavers. No, I'm joking. It's to talk about the BBC Gaza documentary. Brendan, thank you very much for your company. I do appreciate it. Now, the BBC ought to be incredibly ashamed of this documentary, and should it transpire that actually money has been going to Hamas, there ought to be a criminal investigation, should there not?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think this is worse than a scandal. This is one of the worst things the BBC has ever done. Because if you look at the litany of failures in relation to this documentary, firstly, we now know that one of the chief narrators is the son of a Hamas official. So the son of an official linked to the movement that carried out the worst slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. That's very, very serious. There's the possibility, as you say, that some of the money that went to this kid ended up in Hamas's coffers. You know, it could have gone to Hamas in some way or another, so that needs to be investigated. And then, of course, we know that some of the comments made by the participants in the documentary were mistranslated, so that when they talked about launching a holy war against the Jews, which some of them did, the BBC or someone else changed that to fighting against Israeli forces. So they whitewashed the bigoted views of some of the people that they interviewed. This was a dishonest documentary. It was fake news. It was essentially a form of Hamas propaganda, and we need to know how the public broadcaster came to broadcast it.
Indeed. Brendan, what do you think would happen today where it had been a BBC documentary that featured a Israeli minister's son, and money, it transpired, had gone to the Israeli government? How different in measure and tone would the response be?
Oh, well, people would be on the streets crying their eyes out. You know, all those Israelophobic lefties of the kind of bourgeois London leafy middle classes would be on the streets outside the BBC studios going completely nuts. We know that for a fact. And the other example I've used is that imagine the BBC made a documentary about the American South and it was narrated by the son of a leading member of the KKK. Because that's what it's comparable to. Hamas is a violently anti-Semitic organization. It was founded with the express purpose of destroying the Jewish state and killing Jewish people. It carried out the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust about 17 months ago. So the BBC platformed the son of a leading member of a movement that is openly racist. So this is incredibly serious, and yet there's so little blowback from the usual kind of protesting suspects, because when it comes to Israel and when it comes to Hamas, they're completely on the wrong side. They actually, lots of those protesters actually support Hamas, and they hate Israel with a very unusual passion. So there's no blowback to this documentary from those people, and in fact, they support it because they support the message that Hamas is pushing out.
Now, would you say then actually there have been some calls that say, well, we ought to just scrap the licence fee, then taxpayers wouldn't be on the hook for funding these dodgy docos?
Well, you know, I've been quite sceptical of people who say, I'm not paying my licence fee anymore. I've usually had a bit of scepticism about that. But over the past year...
Yeah, because the other one...
But over the past year or so, I've come much more around to that point of view, because you do ask yourself, what are we funding? What are we being compelled by law to fund? We are funding a broadcaster that is incredibly out of touch with public opinion. We saw that during Brexit, when it became the Brexit bashing corporation. We know that the BBC pushes woke ideology. It attacks white people and white men, and it pushes this very divisive DEI agenda. And we know that since 7th of October, it's been completely on the wrong side of this conflict. And in fact, it's become something of a megaphone for the Hamas position. So you do find yourself thinking, why am I giving this institution 169 quid every year? What's that all about? Why am I funding something that treats me with contempt, that looks down its nose at me and other people like me who voted for Brexit, who don't like wokeness, and who think Israel is on the right side of history in this conflict? So that question now dangles over the BBC in a very large way. Why are we being forced to fund it? Why doesn't it become a streaming service like all the others?
I couldn't agree more. Emma Trimble, sorry.
Dead naming me again, Darren. Brendan, you mentioned there that the fact that they translated jihad against the Jews into fighting the Israeli forces. Why do you think it was that the BBC thought that they could actually get away with this, as if they weren't going to be scrutinised over this at all, they weren't going to be held to account for it? Does it suggest that there is a certain attitude, a certain culture at the BBC where they don't expect to be held to account?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, the BBC is now pleading ignorance on some of these questions. For example, they're saying that they directly asked the production company, is anyone in this documentary related to Hamas? And apparently the production company said no. I don't think that lets the BBC off the hook. They should have done their due diligence, which they didn't do. They now admit they didn't do that. But when it comes to the mistranslations, you know, I just think It seems to me this is a documentary that went out on BBC Two late on a Wednesday evening, and the BBC probably thought the kind of people who watch our documentaries late on Wednesday night will be very pro-Palestine, very anti-Israel, very right-on. So they wanted to give them a palatable version of what happens in Gaza. They wanted to show them innocent people, in their view, who just don't like Israel. But they disguised the truth. And the truth is that lots of the people that were encountered in this documentary said very horrible things about Jews. They said we need a jihad against the Jews, we need to invade the Jews, we need to teach the Jews a lesson. So in hiding that kind of invective, the BBC was actually presenting fake news to its viewers and disguising the truth about Gaza, which is that sadly there are a lot of people there who don't support Hamas, but there are some people there who do support Hamas and who do hold anti-Semitic views, and the BBC should have let us see that.
Indeed, far too many. All right, Brendan O'Neill, thank you very much as ever for joining us. I do appreciate you giving up your time. A right of reply from the BBC, my friends. A BBC spokesperson said this: during the production process, the independent production company was asked in writing a number of times by the BBC about any potential connections he and his family might have with Hamas. Since transmission, they have acknowledged that they knew that the boy's father was a deputy agriculture minister in the Hamas government. They have also acknowledged that they never told the BBC this fact. It was then the BBC's own failing that we did not uncover that fact, and the documentary was aired. OK. Coming up, we will explore more triggered tantrums, and we will be revealing your favourite 5.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead to the next few days, it remains largely dry across the south, but further north we will continue to see some further rain from time to time. We still have this weak weather front across the country at the moment, separating the country in two. Still some rain left on it as we move through the course of this evening across northern England, but either side plenty of clear skies. Could see some mist and fog return across parts of East Anglia, southeastern parts of England too, and then later on in the night we could just see some mist and fog also for Northern Ireland and southern Scotland. Under the clearest skies, another cold night, especially in the south, a widespread frost here, temperatures easily falling below freezing. So we start Sunday morning off on a fairly bright note across eastern Scotland, but cloud already beginning to spill back in across northwestern Scotland with an increase in wind here too. Southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, murky start in places with some mist and fog, but that should gradually lift as the day goes on. And for much of England and Wales, a fairly sunny start, and that really is going to continue as we go through the course of the day. It's here where we see the lion's share of the sunshine. Northern England, a little bit more limited with sunshine, with a mix of cloud and sunshine, but really the cloudiest skies will be for parts of Scotland, especially later on as this band of rain just approaches in from the Atlantic. Temperatures on Sunday very similar to what we saw on Saturday, so highs reaching about 10 to 11 degrees. So in the sunshine, I think feeling pleasant enough for the time of year. A look ahead to Monday, another cold, frosty start in the south, but once again, largely sunny skies here. A band of rain just slowly working its way southeastwards, but weakening as it does so. So by the time it gets to England, very little rainfall left on it. And then behind it, we'll see further showers. And really very little changes middle of the week, largely settled in the south, but further rainfall at times across the north.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5 Extra. Now, thank you very much for your messages and for voting in our poll. Please. Here are the results. What have we got? It's a tie. Me and Renee are on 29%.
Good company.
And that's after she got all of her family to vote for her.
I beat Alex. He's going to have me whacked.
Emma is on 21%.
You know what happens when I lose.
Alex Armstrong, never heard of him, on 18%. And Kai's
gone up by 300%.
Yeah,
wow.
3%.
You've been very quiet. You know what it is? You've actually been quite quiet this week.
Maybe that's the problem.
All right. Now it's time for more triggered tantrums. And Kai, we're going to do yours first.
Well, a right-wing tweeter, a prolific tweeter, this week put this tweet up. I walk around my home filled with Deliveroo drivers speaking in foreign tongue. God, Darren Grimes, this is you. I'm quite worried about your flat share arrangements.
I don't live with anyone. And
but your home is apparently full of Deliveroo drivers.
My home, the northeast of England, not my actual home.
Yeah.
A high street populated by foreign beggars. How can you tell foreign or
Because
not?
they're not speaking English. That's a pretty big thing.
And I think the left have tried to take this out of context, knowing all too well what Darren's actually saying.
What a sucker. What a sucker.
No, come on. Even the audience reading that tweet would go, I know what Darren's trying to say. Even if he didn't say hometown, everyone knows what they mean by home.
But it's quite
thing. Come on, it's quite funny.
Gangs of delivery drivers and they're never speaking English.
No, of course not.
Never.
I mean, I think even Deliveroo have now accepted that, and they've fired some of them, haven't they?
Yeah.
But I wonder how many. They couldn't fire them all because
And
they wouldn't have a
Uber Eats
business.
have sent people out to me before where they haven't been who it says it is in the photo. As in totally different sex.
I've had a woman on my app and then a man show up.
Yeah.
Because obviously that's what happens. They scan the face at the start of the day, which is what Deliveroo say they do, and then they hand the phone over. Simple, easy.
Darren, I hope you managed to move out of somewhere with a bunch of Deliveroo drivers in your life.
Well, the whole country, thanks to Labour and Tory policies, the whole country is enveloped in the new age of mass migration. So
Kai's going to move to Wethersfield.
And illegal.
He's going to buy one of those houses right next to the RAF base.
I've got this, which I can't remember what it is, but let's have a look.
Utterly vile, that man. I've been thinking this for a while about Vance. He's utterly vile, and you really saw it today. And he basically said, have you ever said thank you? When are we going to get gratitude?
Have you said thank you once?
That triggers Trump to say, when are we going to get gratitude? I felt that Zelenskyy did look slightly on the edge. Hardly surprising. He's been a war leader for 3 years. He's been flying around the world. Vance also said, all you do are these propaganda tours. I always thought he was going to say free speech. You're not showing us the whole picture. If Trump was a serious person and a serious diplomat, the minute he sensed it going wrong, unless he wanted it to go wrong, he'd have said, OK, you've had your questions, you've had your pictures, we're now going to do the meeting, we'll speak to you later, that have gone and tried to resolve it. Instead of which, he went, you, another question. It was disgusting. Utterly
kept the whole
disgusting.
thing going.
You know, to that I say, do you know what's disgusting? J.D. Vance is a decorated war veteran who served in the Iraq War, and then you think, well, hang on, what was Alistair doing during that period? Well, he was force-feeding us a diet of propaganda and responsible for, I would argue, a complete waste of life.
Oh, yes, Alistair Campbell, the famous peacemaker, the diplomat, who had a very different experience of that war to J.D. Vance.
Yes, I mean, you must be delighted with those statements.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I don't like either these sort of pontificating pastors who just chat rubbish for days and days on end on their podcast.
For a living, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'm not trading on my past without something to hope for in the future.
Who's talking rubbish? Alistair Campbell?
Yes.
Oh.
And actually, they're interesting bedfellows, aren't they? Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell.
Well, they're both on the left. When you really think about it, I mean, Rory Stewart had this moment where he realised he was on the left the other week. Do you remember that?
They're both also incredibly wrong when they make predictions.
So.
That's the primary thing they have in common.
To be fair, left now, he says.
So
you always have been, Rory.
I am incredibly wrong when I make
Belgrave, yeah. That's what he is.
Well, you are going to be wrong over the Senate, because Reform are going to take it.
We have that bet.
We
have
do.
that bet. Yeah.
I don't know who listens to that podcast. I really don't. Like, I don't understand why.
Centrist
Why? People like Kai.
Yeah, well.
I don't listen to podcasts.
No.
And I wouldn't listen to that either.
It shows. No, I'm kidding. I'm just joking.
Do you read?
Wham. No, I don't.
He's reading Callum's book.
Yeah. You bought a copy?
He's waiting for his copy.
He's downloading it because it's communism.
For free?
You know? Get it for free.
I will actually read it. It'll be the one book this year that I read.
It's a good read. I've done it.
Oh. Well. Okay.
Well, there we go.
Don't you have an announcement to make?
In a second,
minute?
yes,
Oh,
in a second. I do have an announcement to make. And, well, let's get to it, shall we? I think we probably should. This is it, my friends. This is my final Saturday 5 show on GB News. It's been an absolute joy to see this show, the Saturday 5, go from strength to strength, especially as I helped launch it 2 years ago. I think it's unique in the British broadcasting market, and I know it'll continue to be a great success with these amazing guys here each week. And it's a really bittersweet moment because while I'm excited for what's next, I also want to take a moment to acknowledge what this platform, and more importantly, what you, our brilliant viewers, have meant to me personally. Over the last few years, I've had the privilege of speaking directly to so many of you, saying the things that far too many in the media are far too afraid to actually say. I feel we've tackled the issues head on, we've laughed at the absurdities of modern Britain, and we've stood firm.
Don't do it. Stop it.
In the absurdities of modern Britain, and a belief that common sense still matters. And it's been an honour. And I want to express my deep gratitude to this production team, the panel, and my colleagues, and above all, to you at home.
Do you want me to read it?
Come on, you can do it. You can do no. He can do this.
The people that have tuned in, engaged, and made this journey totally worthwhile. I'm off to pursue personal projects, but the fight for free speech, for common sense, and for truth, it goes on and it must. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching, for supporting, and for standing up for values that matter. This show, of course, goes on, and it's been left in the custodianship of the man you all know by now has been a dictator, Alex Armstrong. He's finally got what he wanted, lads.
All those jokes just look so sinister now.
I'm out. We got rid of us.
Oh, we're going to miss
so
you
much.
so much.
I know, I'll miss you too.
Darren has been a bastion of free speech, not just on this channel, but on every airwave you can possibly imagine. To follow in his footsteps, everyone on this panel actually is going to be incredibly hard, but Darren is going to go and smash it. We know that, and we're all going to be
and we're going to support you. We'll be there, and maybe even come back and panel with us.
All right, next up, it's someone called Ben Leo.
Who's that?
Tonight.
Never heard of him.
Thank you very much for watching. Darren, I appreciate it.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Looking ahead to next few days, it remains largely dry across the south, but further north we will continue to see some further rain from time to time. We still have this weak weather front across the country at the moment, separating the country in two. Still some rain left on it as we move through the course of this evening across northern England, but either side plenty of clear skies. Could see some mist and fog return across parts of East Anglia, southeastern parts of England too, and then later on in the night we could just see some mist and fog also for Northern Ireland and southern Scotland. Under the clearest skies, another cold night, especially in the south, a widespread frost here, temperatures easily falling below freezing. So we start Sunday morning off on a fairly bright note across eastern Scotland, but cloud already beginning to spill back in across northwestern Scotland with an increase in wind here too. Southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, murky start in places with some mist and fog, but that should gradually lift as the day goes on. And for much of England and Wales, a fairly sunny start, and that really is going to continue as we go through the course of the day. It's here where we see the lion's share of the sunshine. Northern England, a little bit more limited with sunshine, with a mix of cloud and sunshine, but really the cloudiest skies will be for parts of Scotland, especially later on as this band of rain just approaches in from the Atlantic. Temperatures on Sunday very similar to what we saw on Saturday, so highs reaching around 10 to 11 degrees. So in the sunshine, I think feeling pleasant enough for the time of year. A look ahead to Monday, another cold, frosty start in the south, but once again, largely sunny skies here. A band of rain just slowly working its way southeastwards, but weakening as it does so. So by the time it gets to England, very little rainfall left on it, and then behind it we'll see further showers. And really very little changes middle of the week, largely settled in the south, but further rainfall at times across the north.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could be one of 2 big winners in our latest giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 632